There we go. All right, it's almost time, and there we go. 10 seconds. Hey, everybody, you are here on this Sunday, June 24th, 2018. It is Education by Ed. Now, I've got Ed muted because he might have a coughing fit or something, or he just might decide to jump in, which, you know, that's a problematic at times whenever I've got thoughts. Now, the thing is, guys, we don't have much time left. This is not fear-mongering. If you look at the last 20 years of the Roman Empire and you look at the last, 10 years of the American Empire, pretty much identical. Just look at history. Those who ignore history are doomed to repeat. It's that simple. So, without further ado, let Ed take you through, and did you know what you thought you knew?
Hello. Anyhow, I would like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. We are an educational learning group. We are not lawyers. We are not attorneys. We're nobody. We're not in a professional capacity. We're not here out trying to make an income off of you. We want to make sure that you and I all understand, comprehend what the administrative rules are and what the system is and what they're doing to us and how they're doing this to us. And this is the one thing that people have got to start coming together and realizing, that you got to realize that these men and women, these elected and public employees today, are worse than they were 40 years ago. I mean, at least the one thing back then, public employees actually had respect, honor. You know, today they have nothing. They don't care about what they're doing to the people. They're so self-centered and self-greedy. And this is the saddest part, that we are indulging today by the propaganda that gets put in. And I mean, I'm still doing research for us and myself, and so we can get this information out, because we need to know the truth of what's going on here. And this is the one thing that the truth comes from knowledge. And there's a lot of people that will go out and try to confuse you with all these things that, you know, go buy this permit or buy this program and it's going to save you. Well, we've all been through some of these programs. We learned off of some of these programs over the last 20 years. And we found out that some of these people were not accurate. And so this is a learning process that we need to know who is accurate, who's telling the truth, who is honorable. And that's our job to each other. That's what we have to do for one another. You know, that is what we're supposed to do, is to protect one another. And we're supposed to protect the next generation of kids. Sorry, my neighborhood dogs came in. I always get the neighborhood dogs. But we're supposed to be protecting ourselves and the next generation of kids. And see, it is come here, buddy. It's our liability for the generation. Now, if you claim that, you know, you love your child, then it's your responsibility to educate them, not the school. A lot of people say, I sent my kid to the school, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and they're going to protect my kid. Well, you have to realize that when you send your kid to the school is a corporation. And the corporation has administrative rules that teachers have to follow, or else they could be fired from their administrative job. Even though the law says they have to go by certain structures, but their administrative employee or employer, that's technically supposed to be we the people, but today it is whatever agency, government servant is telling these people that they have to live by. And this is the structure and frustration we're all living. And it's really disgusting when you see this stuff going on that, you know, they're stealing the kids. You know, we got a videotape that I'm sharing that I haven't watched myself, dealing with this and the kids' authority and responsibilities. And dealing with, we got experts out that are now telling everybody, well, you shouldn't separate the kids. And this is a big movement that's going on with Donald Trump, that people do not comprehend the real truth about the immigration. He's telling them, hey, I don't want to separate the kids. I don't see that point. And we know this point. I'm not out to separate anybody myself either. But you come into this country, you're coming into my home. You're coming into my area. You know, I'm not coming into your country, into your home, your circumstances. You know, you're coming into mine and ours, and we the people, the native people. And people will go, well, I'm a citizen. Well, look the definition of citizen up. You know, are you a national citizen? You know, are you an American citizen? You a large citizen or a small citizen? How are you rating yourself? How are you dressing yourself? And that's the one point that people do not comprehend, that when you're not dressing yourself correctly, this is the problems that we get into. That's why learning how to file these paperwork, learning how to bring these things forward so that way we get our public servants to fall in track, so that way they become lawfully, not legally. And that's the point that we need to know, dealing with lawful and legal. Because, see, legal is basically administrative rules, that foundation from London, England. And we're dealing with this structure from London, England. They bring all this stuff over. And I do comprehend for some of those that I've been talking to, dealing with when Ronald Reagan named the Bible as the law of the land. Well, that's the other thing that, you know, people are going, well, let's run and use the Bible. Well, then that way, if you're using the Bible, you're saying the treaties and the native life and the people that were from this original structure of this country don't exist. You're saying the Bible is the law of the land, that man wrote a book to dictate man how to be enslaved. And that's the way I read or interpret the Bible when, you know, I went through Bible study and things that I went through, or maybe it was the way it was presented to me. And so I have to look at the way it was presented to me as the way I look for my knowledge and my education. You know, I don't want to go look on, you know, billboards and go through a guessing game of what it might mean on a billboard. And so when we go through these process, these circumstances that we are living today, it is extraordinarily frustrating that we're going through this today. And the kids are the ones who are suffering beside the adults. You know, and that's the one thing that we are working on instruments. I'm working on instruments that I mentioned to you last evening. A couple of them I do have finished. We'll get them posted up tomorrow. I don't have them ready to go out tonight where I'm comfortable with them yet. But I will have them out tomorrow, so that way we'll get them posted. We'll get them emailed out to people. So if you would like to do these and question your public servants on their certifications, their job descriptions and stuff, more the merrier, more people we need out there doing that, exposing that. I did get information from a friend of mine in California that the California Bar Association installed new rules and regulation. If a bar attorney is not licensed and has a Constitution oath signed, not a bar card, a Constitution oath signed, they cannot be an attorney in California now. This just started a couple months ago. So the people that have been involved in rocking the edges on the boat on this did a wonderful job. So, and I got more information. I'll be getting out on that one coming up in the next few days, because we need to get this information out to the general public. We need to get the information out so we know who, what, why, and how. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And that is the one thing that people do not readily comprehend. I got a couple good friends of mine that are what we call Indians. I just call it, when we're that old, we're native. But, they're going through the interesting circumstances. They're watching what's going on, even with their own people. We could go to get the welfare cheese so we don't have to work. And it's like, but we want all of our rights intact. Well, as far as, that's what we're talking about with some of the natives I've been dealing with and their tribes, is putting together a program to get these kids so that way they're doing gardening and getting this stuff done and getting their parents off their ass. Because this is the one thing we watch how parents and adults get to the point where, they want to drink and party. Hey, don't have a problem. Done it myself. Lived the life. But there's a thing called responsibility first. And once you get your responsibilities away, then your party can begin. But it doesn't mean your party lasts every single day, 24 hours a day. I mean, you have to have a break sometime. It's like, the only thing out there that doesn't affect the body technically is hemp. Everything else has side effects, And the one thing about hemp, you can't OD. There's not one case in any part of history, medical history, that anybody OD'd on hemp. But you have to realize that your elected and public servants don't make an income off of that because that's what the Great Spirit put out. And not only that, the hemp is actually mentioned in their Bible, stating that it's God's medicine. And the Bible states that. And I know I wrote a piece for a guy on that a year ago. So it's like the laws are there. And that's the point of using the law. Administrative rules are only for elected and public servants. And that's the one thing that we need to get straightened out. I mean, we just had I missed the public meeting the other day. I wish I would have known. I would have gone to. But in the city of Toledo, in my area, they're raising all the taxes 20% straight across the board in my town again. Now, in the last 3 years, this is basically coming to an 80% increase. They do this, and people are sitting there yelling and screaming in the public meetings, and I read what the newspaper article did, and I read what is going on. I'll get a hold of some people here this week and asking these people, if you guys really want to bitch on this and do something about it, let's file criminal charges on them: embezzlement, racketeering, fraud, and extortion. Number one is by their democracy, we the people are supposed to be able to vote on any tax, in all tax increases. All employees, that includes electrical increases, because electrical is a tax. Your phone bill, that's a tax. See, all these things are a tax technically. You look in the tax code. These are all listed in the tax code. So that's the thing that sort of stuns me, is that people will sit there and say, well, we need to pay taxes, or we should pay taxes. We need to pay these taxes to keep the schools going. Well, how did the schools work until 1980, until after they started really taking over the budgets of the school districts, because the schools didn't start until 1968, the Federal Administration of Schools. Prior to that, the schools was very simple. Everybody in the community baked food and brought it to the schools. That's been known in history going back for generations. But we've become such of a placent area. I don't like using the word society, because we are the people of the soil. So when they start putting these things in and start making these demands, we need to start making demands. And I comprehend where people are afraid, well, I'll lose my job. I won't have this income. I won't have that. Yeah, we all get it, but when we stop being afraid and we start standing up, we start seeing changes like what's going on in California. Because California, right now, today, if you're an attorney in California, and I think it was July 30th, I've got a resource, but if these attorneys are not registered, they're disbarred. Disbarred. So, so the system, we the people, there are changes that are happening. Just because some people might not see it right in front of their face, because some people need to see something directly in front of their face to believe them, or believe it, just like myself included. I do know that, myself included. So, but it is one of those things that when you do this stuff, how to put these things together. How do you compromise? How do you work with this? And these people have an obligation, these public servants. You know, that's why what we're putting out. It's like I had a gentleman that was going off on me, you know, don't fill their paperwork and don't do it that way because if you ask them their job and employment, now you're agreeing to their terms is what he's telling me. Well, I got to see a little bit more. I get this drift of what he's telling me on it. But but that's the one point too, is that, and he brought up the point, well, you have to clarify you're not agreeing to their terms or their statute codes and administrative rules. So, and that's the one thing that when we're putting together our paperwork, we have to make diligently clear that we're not agreeing to have them have authority over one of us or over our children or anything. And so we need to put that in writing and clarify that when you put any paperwork together for anything. I don't care, you know, if it's a local Salvation Army collecting, you put in that paperwork. If you're getting a tax credit, you're not agreeing to the terms. Of course, I wouldn't do that on a tax credit anyways, because when you do that tax credit, you know, they're going to monitor you for what you did, how you did it, why you did it, and what's the purpose of what you did. And people don't realize the IRS actually does go through things like that and make these self-determinations by their administrative rules. And that's the one thing that most people have got to comprehend on administrative rules. And so we don't get a lot of this stuff that is going on. You know, this is the beauty about learning the system of we the people. Because a lot of our forefathers have written stuff to protect us. You know, everybody would say the Constitution, it's not a contract for we the people, it's a contract for them, and we shouldn't have contact with them. It is a contract for them to do their employment. If they don't do their employment, we need to start eliminating their budgets. I mean, we've had over a 600% increase in government employees, especially from foreign agents, from foreign countries as well, because you figure 45% of every public employee who's been hired, I would say minimum 45% are not even Americans in this country. They're what they call national or citizens. And, you know, I got a gentleman that always likes to use the word national, and we're national citizens. And I'm like, do you know what national means, including what the law says of national? Oh, yeah, it says that we're national citizens. And they said, no. Even if you go back through the Constitution, where's the national part in the Constitution? I haven't seen that national word used in the Constitution or the founding structure. National really didn't come in place until about the 1830s, and it wasn't really put in place until the administrative rule of the 14th Amendment, to my comprehension. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, somebody who I know will point it out to me, and we'll get that changed. But this is the one thing that we've got to work on these things and figure out how these things work. You know, this is the main structure of what's going on. And it is a frustration that we go through these turmoils and we're living this structure, you know, that we're going through these headaches and hassles that we're going through. You know, these public employees, I mean, especially these so-called cops, you know, they're out there to make a living. And when these cops are trying to tell you, oh, we're only making $35,000, $40,000 a year, that was 10 years ago. With a basic salary for them. Basic is $50 now. But then again, you have to calculate every time they go to court, they get paid for it. They don't go on their own time. They get paid for it. Win case, lose case, it don't matter to them. They're still going to be there. They're getting paid. The clerk gets paid. The judge gets paid. The administration gets paid. You got the two cops that are usually in the building there watching everybody. They get paid. Everybody's getting paid but you when you go to these domestic foreign agent courts. How come everybody else is getting paid and we're not? That's why, you know, when I was talking to one gentleman and he's like, we've got to start this program up and start putting it together so that way we put up a payment schedule. Him himself, he personally charges like a top attorney does. He charges $5,000 an hour for everything he does. And that's what he's been billing in his case, the whole circumstances on his case, $5,000 an hour, plus his stamps, plus his traveling time. But you need to make these things notation. You need to keep a diary of these things. Keep them in organized fashion, especially not like me. I've got to sit down and go through boxes and start organizing. Of course, I went through a phase where my house kept on getting robbed and papers going through, so at least I know where everything was, and everybody tried to come through. They couldn't figure out anything, so it frustrated them. You could tell the way things were shuffled because they couldn't find whatever they were looking for. But now I got to start putting what I got left together. I mean, I've had cases of boxes over the last 10 years disappear out of my house. Even historical records from the state of Oregon, because back in 2005, under the Reduction Paper Act, they were throwing historical papers in the trash, in the garbage, literally. Destroying historical documents so that way they can sit there and go, we don't know what you're talking about. And this is what these public employees, remember, they don't care about their job. Or they care about their job, but they don't care about you. They care about their retirement. Most of them really don't care about the children. I've even had public employees that right in front of their own kids says, you do this, hey, I'm going to call the cops and have them arrest you and haul you off. They won't scold their kid. They won't explain to the kid what the difference of right and wrong are. And I watched public employees call their cops on them and let the cops deal with their kids. And this is what we've come to, that we some of the people have come to in our country, that we are sitting there doing these things to one another. We forgot what it's like to be oriented as, a family in the country, of families. That's like when Trump. It was funny. I love the way they started attacking Trump. No, it's your fault he's doing this. And Trump honestly came out and said, hey, look at the Democratic Party. Go read who passed the Senate bills and the House bills, the congressional record bills. Look who did it. Don't blame me for what these other people did. Go to the people that actually did it. Maxine Waters, Pelosi, Boxer, Feinstein. The list goes on of these people that do it, because you got to remember that all these people, Boxer, Pelosi, Feinstein, they have what they call drug and alcohol program treatment centers they own. So they're making a living off of this. My attitude, if you got drunk and alcoholic people out there and that's what they want to be, fine. Let's go back to the way it was 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. You turned your back on people like that. You didn't deal with them. Unless a man or a woman came back, even a child came back and made a proper amends, and that's between you and the individual. But we're not even doing that today, and that's the saddest part that we're living today, going through the process, what we're dealing with, not only ourselves or our children. And it doesn't help when we got these public employees, vultures out there, waiting in the lamplight, trying to make a living off of our children and ourselves. How much money can we put this ticket in? And if you don't show up, we're going to send guns after you. We're going to threaten your life, your safety. And and people don't, and I can tell people, we've been living like Nazi Germany. There is absolutely no difference today as it was in Germany. Cops walk up and they shoot somebody. What's the difference of Nazi Germany and today? The cop gets on suspension. He gets paid leave, vacation. It's the same thing Nazis did. Then after whatever time, then he's back on a job. He never lost a day of pay. You never had a penalty for him for doing the damage that he or she caused to somebody. So this is the point that we've got to start putting this stuff together and start holding them responsible. We've got several men and a couple of women that I've been talking to. We're putting together stuff. Eventually, we're going to sit down. Eventually, here I want to, we'll get it set up on, something in the midweek or something. We could do a round table. Or we'll probably do it on a Sunday night, a round table on things, and start sitting down and bouncing around ideas. Because I want to start coming up with the actual solutions, and I've come up with solutions to some of these problems. So have some of you come up with some of the solutions to these problems. But we have to sit down and put them together and make sure that we start enforcing them. Now, when I was informed that the California Bar Association is jumping in, okay, I'll have that resource put up on Facebook by Wednesday. So then that way we can start passing that around and start getting that publicized, and hopefully the mainstream media really might pick that up. And then that way we can start projecting it to other states. And once that happens, you'll see, once that goes through, you'll see a 24% reduction straight across the board on what's being filing in the court systems. Because you got when you're going out and you're doing hunting, you got to hunt like a bear when you're hunting. Yeah, you can't sit there and think that it's not the food is just going to come and sit at the table for you. You have to go get it. And that's what we're working on the structure. Now, I've got to finish up these other templates like I said I was going to do. I wanted to have them done tonight, but, since I've been up 9.5 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, strictly on the computer this morning. I looked at the clock, trying to get some of these things, other projects I've got putting together. I'm trying to put some other projects that I'm working on in alignment, in chronicle order and stuff. So when I do start getting this other information out, I want to make sure it's out so it's not a conflict of interest. And that's the one thing, too, is that anytime you go to court, you want a conflict of interest statement from the judge, from the county clerk, from the administrator. Everybody needs a conflict of interest statement. Because remember, they get paid by the state. If they're paid by the state, that's a conflict of interest. See, all this stuff is sitting right in front of our face, what they're doing illegally. And we have the solutions to stop these things. We have the knowledge to make sure that these things start being implemented. And the only way that's going to happen is by me. I hate to tell some of these people that, but, their other side of praying ain't going to work. That's not reality. Of course, it does work sometimes, I guess. But anyhow, and then I wanted to bring up a deal what Citizens Action Network has brought up, and that's one thing about Mike. He does bring up some good information, besides several other men and women out there. And to bring this up, I've got to get working on this also too tomorrow. Arranging for a meeting coming up. Hopefully, I got to figure out transportation. But we're going to be working on setting up a meeting at the Oregon State Capitol on the House side to set up, you're going to like this, a traveling ID card, a traveling card. It won't say ID card, it'll say a traveler's card on it. I've got information from a legislator that says that's a good idea. Let's start expanding on this thought. So, but the main thing that they were bringing up on this is like, auto insurance is a mandate for personal liability system. Well, actually, the law says it's not mandated. And under personal liability system and by federal and state law, men and women are liable for their actions. So if you get in a car wreck or something like that, you have to make the amends to the people on it. You have to make the injury whole again. And so getting people to start getting that point and getting that responsibility back, because the only reason why the insurance law, especially in Oregon, changed in 2000 was that a public employee's son was a famous major congressman. Son got hit and killed by an illegal immigrant. No insurance, no nothing. But see, that's the other thing that gets to me, is that my response that I'm going to email this senator back, this representative back, and bring the attention is, is that the money is already there. We already know, and I've already proven that they've already embezzled $1 billion under the uninsured motorist fund. So the money is there. So I'm going to be putting up some responses to his questions, and so that way I can clarify it for him. I already have the information. It's like research and get me the bill information. Then that way we can put back the insurance back to the people. And that means that immigration is not covered. It's not there to cover immigration. Remember, the Oregon State has covered immigration on every standard, but has not covered we the people. And that's the one thing. We don't even know how many immigrants we got in the state of Oregon. Technically, we have no clue. Literally, we have no clue. You know, unless you're on the outskirts and you're driving down in a farm area or in a public housing area, that's how you get to see the truth. But if you're not out there in those areas where they're congregating, you don't see it. And the media sure doesn't bring it out in the public eye. And they won't bring it out in the public eye. See, this is the point, that people are not responding to the truth of what's going on around us. And so this is the one thing. We have the solution with the uninsured motorist fund. So I'm going to be requesting and producing that and bringing that out to them. Well, here's this, because I actually have a YouTube video with Senator Roblin and me on a YouTube video where it's like, where's the uninsured motorist fund? Oh, here's so nonchalantly, we already spent the money. Well, it's not their money to spend. And that's the one thing that these men and women in the House and Senate think, that whatever goes into that building is their money to spend for their circumstances, for whatever they want. And it's not their money. See, all that money technically is our money, and I've had senators and congressmen in the past tell me that, oh, well, if the people wanted the money, they would speak up, so they give us the authority, so we do what we want. And that's not exactly true, because people don't have a clue. And then they come up with all this other legal terminology that screws us all. And that's the one thing we want to get away from, the legalese. So, and that's the one thing, the one beauty that we have of what they've done, what they did in California, going after the bar. And now we need to have that going each and every state, bringing that forward for every bar to do it. You know, and the one thing is, we know that Donald Trump has been bringing out a lot of good things, even though he's getting slammed left and right. And we know how he's getting slammed, but the point is that it's our responsibility to protect the children. And I'm not going to use the word the village, because I don't believe in the Clintons, them and their village. And that goes back to the 13th century in England, where everybody took care of stuff. Now, when most of us grew up, you know, we basically, all the parents in the neighborhood knew where everybody was. Nobody had a problem. The kids were running around with no problem. What we call, I have a little slip I put up, it's called free-range parenting. So we are free-range parenting. So that's the one thing that people have to realize, that parents are free-ranged. Just like your chickens or your other vegetables or, your other meat products that are running around the forest and the woods. And that's the other thing, you know, everybody, we need logging jobs. Well, what are we going to do with the logging jobs? How are you going to eat when the national disaster finally really strikes? Nobody's really thinking about that. You know, like I mention all the time. We got Fukushima. We've got the structure with Washington, where Hanford is leaking right into the bays and stuff. And then people are promoting and pushing, move to Oregon, move to the West Coast. I mean, it's just as bad here as it is on the East Coast, with 3 miles leaking too. Remember, these things are destroying the food resources. So we have more than one thing of consideration of what we're dealing with and living with and facing right now today. Now, were you elected in public, please bring this up? Oh, no. They can't do that because if they told you the truth, they couldn't make a living. They couldn't rape, rob, and pillage as they are doing today. And that is the one thing that these men and women, we've got to get these things stopped. So we're going to have these templates up so that way people could sit there and bring these things forward. And like I said, anybody wants it, I'll pass this around. I'll post this on a few other people's websites. This is what Can Public Notice put out, Michael put out, dealing with the flag. Well, yeah, we support the blue line flag, law enforcement as a domestic terrorist organization owned by a foreign interest and controlled by the state bar communist monopoly over our Constitution rights. If a cop witnesses bad behavior of another, a cop does not report in good faith, and they do not compliance. Quas military brutalize. Basically, we know they're brutalizing the hell out of us. Mike's got a hell of ways written this up. I'm posting it on people's Facebook wall. You can see it. And it's getting this blue line stuff out. And he mentioned to me when I was talking to him early how Cliven was flying the peace flag out there, our real flag, not the wartime flag that everybody flies in our schools and buildings. Now trying to get the Bundys to actually sit there and file that. Now, we got one of the Bundys running for governor of Arizona. So the point is that is he going to fly? What flag is he going to fly? See, these are questions that we should be asking these men and women, that are running for office, that are doing this stuff, bringing the things out to know what they are. See, it's our responsibility to bring this stuff out so we know what the truth is. And that's the one thing. If the gentleman is running for governor of Arizona, what flag is he going to fly? Is he going to stand by the Constitution or administrative rules? I don't want to hear Bible talk. I've got another gentleman that keeps pushing the Bible issue on me because of Ronald Reagan's Bible deal, and I'll put that up here in just a minute. Because when I don't have it in front of me, I'm working on it right now. Because Ronald Reagan made the Bible the law of this land, apparently. And and that's the one thing, I almost got it up. And, I don't have a problem with that per se, but I do have a problem with the circumstances that the Bible is being dictated to us instead of natural man law, native law. Because, and I'm talking to people, and people go, don't you know the Bible's been on this country and soil for years before the Indians were here? I still have a question on that one because the Bible came from England and nobody knew about the Bible until it was shoved down the natives' throats and natives were kidnapped and sold for money. Hog traded and everything else. So these are the things that it's scary, and I have my own reservations about the Bible and that structure, but that's my reservations. When people say, well, I talk to the Bible. Well, okay, so I don't want to call them crazy because of what their own mentality tells them, and that is their religious right. See, that is the one thing that people have got to realize what the difference of a right and a privilege is. If it's their right to believe in what they believe in, which nobody has a problem when it really comes down to that one, because I like to believe in what I like to believe in, you want to believe in what you believe in, and that's the whole point of so long as that we're not harming, injuring, or putting personal liability to one another, we don't have the issue. And so that's the one point of putting these things together so we don't have the issue. We could do that. Okay, here we go. Public law. 97-280. This is 1983, where Ronald Reagan made the Bible the law of the land. Well, the thing that sort of questions me when Reagan did that, I always believed in the Constitution was the law of the land. So the Constitution was written up by the natives so that way we had rights and freedom. To me, I don't know about the Bible having freedom because the Bible dictates to a man and woman how to live. The Bible tells a woman that she doesn't have a right to her body. The man owns her. She's a slave to the man. She has no rights per se at all by the Bible. I mean, you own your property. And I don't have a problem per se because of my past relationships. Me and my past, we claimed each other as property. We actually did. Most people, when you're in a relationship, do that. You claim each other as property. And that's the thing, is that you want to make sure that you own your property. So if you're claiming and your woman endorses that, then the man has to endorse it because it's one of each other. And so when public law went into effect, and I get where people are running with that, use the public law. But the thing is that most of these public laws were put together in a structure that we're not exactly sure the actual purpose. We didn't write it. We weren't there when they were put together. We were not put there in the circumstances the way they are. But yeah, Public Law 97-28 says Ronald Reagan said the Bible is the law of the land, not man, not God, not the Creator, not the Great Spirit, the Bible. The Bible is a book. So, and I'm not against religion when it comes down to it in any manner because I support every man's right to religion, every woman's right to a religion. But I do believe strongly that the woman owns her body, not me, not some government agent, not some religious organization has the right to tell a woman what to do. And so this is the thing, is how do we solve these issues? How do we bring some of this to the table? I've got people saying, well, run the Bible structure with your property deal. Well, that's an idea. I'm looking at the options, but also, too, if I do that, what authority am I actually handing over to a corporation at that point by claiming such thing? So, and I want to know before I speak out on some things, because I do speak a lot, and I don't like it when I have something comes back and bites me in the butt, because it hurts. And we all know it hurts. We all been there. And so how do we stop these things happening? So like I said, I've got the one template I'll be putting out dealing with property tax and the definition of money. How do you expect somebody to pay it? Here's the way it works. But I do believe, because of what I have been bringing out, stressing out, talking out, I do believe why this attack to me done it. Like I said, I'm on the point where, I'm scraping, hopefully not to eat sawdust, but this is the reality. I can't go fishing right now. I can't jump in my covered wagon. I'm working on that right now. And this week, because I finally got conversations with them on this going through. It's going through for everybody else. That's the nation. You have to file for your privileges. You're a privilege. And these people say, well, the world is open to everybody. No, it is not. The world doesn't have a contract called the Constitution. The only people, to the best of my knowledge, that have a contract is we the people. Also, that's the one thing that gets to me, We're supposed to have what Thomas Jefferson said, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, where is it? So that's the one thing that it's like when people say these things, and it's like, where is it? How come we're not acting on this? How come these children are getting kidnapped and held for ransom? How come these people are going through the circumstances of what they're going through? So, I mean, we have to look at these points of view of how to solve these issues that we, the people, are living through, going through, physically being terrorized by. And that's the one thing that people got to realize, that we are being terrorized when it comes down to a lot of this structure. We're not standing out on some issues, but this is the one point that, when we're not standing out on this, how do we expect to have things start working out? How do we expect our public employees to start honoring their oath of office? That comes from you and I, and we are making these headways. We are getting successful on these things. So we are getting production on these things. So by us standing together, working together, getting these information out, we are accomplishing quite a bit. And so just because one might not see the definite change in something that's happening, another will. And so that's the beauty about all of us that are passing and sharing information back and forth with one another. Because as long as that we're doing that, we're protecting ourselves. We're protecting the children. And so when I do put these other things on, like last night's show and tonight's show, I'll be putting eventually some of the circumstances on them dealing with, I don't know, one thing called like the foreign agents principles. We have a deal called, dealing with, I have the remedy with licensing and stuff that we're supposed to do, but when we start getting these things pushed now, these public servants are going to the media and going, well, these guys are pushing this, that, and the other thing, wanting us to back off, so that way they could have what they consider freedom, and it is our freedom. That's the one thing that you have to recall, that this is our freedom. And when all elected and public officials have to register as foreign agent, and I'm stipulating and going to be pushing this a lot, put it in your affidavits and your information. And we do know that, a judge could throw an affidavit, a judge can do this, a judge can do that. We know this stuff, but at least that if it does end up in a court of appeals, you've already have that stuff filed for it to be brought up. So, there are these things to protect us, to protect you. We have laws that were put in place to protect immigration, and we're not protecting immigration. That means your children, your personal bloodline, your livelihood. That's the other point, is how come we're not out in the woods fishing and hunting? How come the state are not putting so much food resources in the local rivers and streams, like their founding instruments dictate to them that that's their position? They have rules and regulations that it's our fault because we're not following and making sure they are forcefully doing their job. And I always get frustrated when people say, oh, well, we could just pick up our guns, or they're going to pry it from my dead cold fingers. Okay. It's like I told somebody recently, like, let's do this. And I said, well, you and I and 4 other people did it. We need about 1 million or 2 million people to stand up and do this. The way they're talking, you're not going to do something like that for just a handful of people. But a handful of people are actually changing some administrative rules. We just, I just brought it to your attention with California. Others are doing it around the country. This stuff is being produced, being brought up. People are paying attention across other states. So this is the one thing that you have to pay attention to, the circumstances that we're all living. You got to remember, we're all living this. And it is a fact that we're all living this structure, and Our children are suffering from it. They feel your emotions. They feel your stress points. Oh, and then everybody says, well, you shouldn't act this way. You shouldn't act that way. Well, I always get frustrated when people tell me how to act or maneuver or to think. And you should feel that way too. Nobody has the right to tell somebody how to think or feel. And we get people do it all the time. Everybody wants to control our time by doing this stuff, and we lose what we're gaining. We're losing what we're supposed to be accomplishing. We're losing that we're not providing for the children. It's like, this big meeting that they had in my town in Toledo over property taxes again. We're going to raise all the taxes again another 20%. They just did this last year, 2 years ago. I mean, 20 years ago, my average water bill was $14. Sewer, water, everything. Today, the average water bill in my town is $100 minimum. Of course, you have a basic water fee we never had before. So, we have a basic water fee of $50. And it's trying to get people to start changing the direction in it, and it's slowly happening. But people are starting to get more and more frustrated. People are starting to get more and more angry over these things. And that's what we need to do. And as we are doing this, and I like to thank everybody that is out there, finally we're starting to get information passed amongst each other. We're not being afraid of one another. We're starting to actually talk to each other and realize that we're on the same team, or the same side of the fence, as one might want to call it. We are working on these things to protect our children and ourselves. And it is working. And when we're doing this stuff, and we need to start standing up in the local area to make sure that more locals are standing up. I want to be able to get seeing that the Bundys are making this push to run for Nevada. I want to make sure they're talking about not arresting people for traveling. I brought that up. I haven't got a response back. That was back in February. I was trying to get some confirmation with them on a few things, and including from their campaign manager, which all of a sudden I'm told by the campaign manager, we'll talk to you after the election unless we win, or if we win. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, you got to start maneuvering now. I don't know where people come up and start thinking that they could do something in 30 days, like running for governor. Very seldom has that been pulled off overnight, and the only one who's ever pulled that off, to the best of my knowledge, was a guy from, what country was that? I think it was from Kenya. And it's been proven he was never born in the United States. His brother was born in Hawaii. So, I mean, it's like, when do the lies stop happening? And that's the point. When do the lies stop happening? And that's what we got to stop doing, is doing these lies and start protecting one another. And we are doing that. People are starting to pay attention. When I talked to Mike earlier, that was nice to see the point. Me and Mike and other people have raised heck with the California Bar Association. They filed claims on attorneys down there, gone after them. And that's what we need to start doing on these local attorneys. And if they're not defending a man or a woman's rights, they need to be filed on. They need to go to jail. And we need to start making sure that these people, and everybody goes, well, they're not going to police themselves, Ed. Well, the point is that they're not going to police themselves. That's why it's our job, your job, to police them. When you do this, you put an affidavit together and you file your claim in an affidavit. Even though they can do whatever they want with an affidavit, but I'd much rather have an affidavit So it's record. So if it does go into another court, it comes back so that way they can't run and hide. Court of Appeals, you've already got everything filed there, so they can't run and hide. You know, because there are some judges that are starting to stand up. I've heard a couple cases on big federal court cases where two judges just went after the system itself and their own judges, federal judges. And they're saying that the federal judges should be fired. 50% of the federal judges should be fired today. And I will have that information out myself here after a bit too, so people can see what I'm talking about. And I do get the information out to people. People know I'll provide it. Sometimes it might take me a couple days. And, you know, if you don't see it, always call me up. I will always get it out to people. But that's the point, that we need to make sure these things are out there. We need to make sure that these things are producing for your children. I mean, I don't have that issue. I don't have, you know, I don't, to the best of my knowledge, I don't have a bloodline. My bloodline died off. You know, so I mean, I deal with what I have to deal with in life. And so that is the one frustration we all have to deal with. So it is working on these things so that way is to protect the children and to protect you, to protect your woman, to protect their homes. You know, I mean, that's the one thing, you know, we used to have kids that would walk down my street, rattle people's doors. Of course, they stopped doing that after a while because a couple of us stepped out and, you know, when you hear this click going on and they're like, what's that? And it's like, what are you doing here? You know, oh, shit. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're walking into something. We just want to let you know. And that's the one thing that people need to real comprehend, that, you know, these men and women, when you walk into these things and these danger points, you mean what you say and you have to do what you say. You know, I'm going after the structure that I'm going after, and I'm doing what I'm saying. I can't sit there and talk about it. I can't pray to what? Who am I praying to? The only thing I can do is, for those who are kindness with their knowledge, learn and pass it on. So that way we get that knowledge, so that way it is passed on. So it doesn't dissipate. Because we have a lot of men and women out there that have, you know, hundreds of years of knowledge combined, and getting it so it's passed on. And that's what we should be doing, is getting the stuff passed on. We don't want these things to die off. We want to make sure that they are factual evidence put out there, so that way anybody has them in reserve. And once we start doing that, and the things that are applied in that fashion, you know, we just won. See, these are things that people don't comprehend, how to win your court case. And the one thing is to file on the judge, you know, conflict of interest. You want his oath of office. You want to file, especially on that flag that terrorist is flying in that building. And so when we start filing these paperwork and working with each other and filing paperwork and reading each other's paperwork and bringing these points out where we're all working together, we are actually starting to see significant changes. And that's like the one thing, you know, putting the thing out with the flag issue. We need to make sure that that is still pushed. And so that way when anybody goes to court, it is filed in court on the flag. Because once the judges start getting this stuff filed on the court deals, you know, it is interesting. And public notice that I'll bring up, apparently now, after what I've gone through with the banks myself, apparently the national banks are going after the gun industry and closing their bank accounts down. So, okay, well, the bank industry is doing that. That means we have to go to gold and silver, so time to not do business with them. So we the people have solutions to these problems, but are we going to do it? Yes, it might not be a quick solution. it might take us out of our way for 10 or 20 minutes or something for another direction of doing something else. You know, it's not as fast in time to do something today as it was yesterday, because we're not personally dealing with the bank. But these are things that we have to do to protect it. I mean, everybody likes to use their debit card, swipe it, and leave. You know, that is the one thing that people do all the time. Let's swipe the card and leave. We don't have to deal with change or dig in our pocketbook and get money out. And see that we need to start doing compared to like when I grew up. I mean, most people, how many people recall people using a credit card growing up? A lot of us never saw a credit card until way later in life. You know, that's like Montgomery Ward's. What was the reason why Montgomery Ward's went bankrupt? That had to do with because a gentleman filed on the court case and proved that the money is a debt note, and when they paid the debt note, the money couldn't be honored. So that's why Montgomery Ward's went bankrupt. And that's called the coffee bean case. Of course, it's interesting. I was glad for one gentleman for legal deception that provided that case to us, because it disappeared off my structure, and that coffee bean case means a lot. It does tell you what's going on. And once you do comprehend what's going on and how our fines and all these stuff are being dictated to us, now we need to go back. And when they start saying, well, then then you want to hear it by their own words telling you, oh, administrative rules says you can't have contact with me? So we want to make sure that their administrative rules start speaking up, speaking out. We want to use their words to speak to us. They wrote it, we quote it. You know, and that's the point. We're quoting what they wrote, so that way, and then I have other people say, Ed, stay away from that. Don't go to what they quote, because then that way you're agreeing to their terms. And I'm like, okay, I comprehend where you're coming from and your thoughts you're saying, but the other side, that's why you put your disclaimer in. That's why if anybody reads even on Oregon Tracker's YouTube channel, I have my disclaimer up there. I could change anything I want. Any of my instrument I want that is done by me that I wrote, I could correct, I could change. I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to plead for it. You know, and they can't do anything without my exclusive permission in writing. See, and I post that in my stuff, and then I have the other one on my electronics. I post 2 different electronic deals up in my emails I send out. And by doing this, it's legally covering ourselves. And remember, the other major point is when you do it, everybody likes to use UCC 1308. I agree. But also, too, in that I like to use myself I-207 in it, because I-207 was first, and then they amended it to I-308. So when they amend something, you want to put back and you want to direct it to the original, because they change things in amendments, and you don't want to accept their corporation administrative change. And remember, it's a corporation administration change. And so that's what you want to be able to protect yourself on these things, so it doesn't come across where you're losing things. You know, I mean, I'm fighting my property tax deal right now. I don't know what direction it's going. I mean, to tell you the truth, because I haven't heard nothing. But then again, I know how sneaky these people are. They're snakes in the grass. I wouldn't trust them in my home. Wouldn't trust them in my family. You know, and then the other thing, too, is let me not be so hard on all of them. We do have very honorable elected and public servants out there. So with the honorable elected and public servants, we need to congratulate them. We need to thank them. And see, that's the one thing that we need to bring into the thing. And then also, too, like I said, I do have the government officials de facto laws, where it even says that, all legislators are bound by the Constitution. All of them have to have bonds and issues. Oh, that right. Under State versus Highway Department 336, Michigan, 617914 NW 2D 700 197 employees of city or state are not immune from suits under statute-related civil rights deprivation of rights on the grounds of official were acting under. They don't get immunity. You'll have these cops and attorneys and judges say, we have immunity. Well, I have the court cases, and including administrative rules that have passed. No, they have no immunity whatsoever. State officials may be personally held liable for damages based upon actions of their employment. And that's Hafford, H-A-F-E-R, versus Melo, M-E-L-O, 502, U.S. 21, and this was done in 1991, where it says state officials have no immunity. They can be held liable. So when you get pulled over and talked and assassinated or harassed or assaulted for traveling without a license, they have laws. But then again, what judge is going to do it? Who's going to hold them liable? See, and that's the point, that we, the people, have got to get out a little further. We are doing good. We are producing productive paperwork out there. And that is the one thing that we're producing this stuff and bringing this stuff forward, is making sure that we are able to protect not only ourselves, but our friends and neighbors. See, that's the main thing, is protecting your friends and neighbors through this stuff. Protecting your families. Because let me tell you, I always love when people go, oh, the Clintons are so wonderful. God, it's like, people, can't you do the research? Are you that brainwashed and confused by the local media that has you so tied in that, I know they can't tell the truth, but to tell you the facts, March 3rd, 1997, William J. Clinton, Executive Order 13037, says that you are human capital. You are owned by the federal government. You have no rights. You are a slave to them. And if you don't pay your privilege life of taxes. And remember, everything's a privilege. And if you don't stand up to these privileges that they're dictating to you, that they're saying that it's a privilege for you to have, so you got to start standing up and say, no, it's not a privilege, it's a right. I have a right to this. And then when they say, I always love when people say, well, your Social Security is a benefit, it's a privilege. No, it is not. Social Security is not a privilege, it is not a benefit. It is a right we have. It's an actual right we have, so long as you're lawful. Please go read the original contract. So I tell people, you got to go back to the original. Now, they did administrative changes since then. We know that. We know that they've done these administrative changes. Okay, we get that point. Now it's time, because of administrative changes that they personally have done to screw us over, now it's time for us to start acting on our rights and make sure that we're filing the criminal charges on them. And sure, it might not happen overnight. We comprehend that. You and I both know that. But the bottom line that comes up for the circumstances of it is that they are getting caught. When these people are breaking windows out, you know, it's interesting trying to get some of these people to comprehend that, oh, I need an attorney, and you try to send them, and I know not only myself and a lot of you folks out there have done it yourself. You sent these people emails, you sent them stuff to help them out, and they're going, and I always love these people, we need to hire an attorney. Okay, we'll go hire an attorney. Why are you talking to us? Why are you contacting us? You know, you want the attorney, so go get an attorney. To me, it's that simple. So, and that's the other point I want to bring up, like I'm brought up earlier too, and I want to bring up again, is that I always like to suggest that I think we've got situated and set up, but the notice to clerk. Remember, any clerk is a clerk. And that is the one thing to comprehend. Any and all clerks are clerks. So if it's a clerk at DMV, if it's a clerk at the courthouse, if it's the county clerk, the state clerk, you know, notice to clerk, and I always do this too, and I do this now more than I did until it sunk in my head, and I've got more to this, but notice to clerk, the minute you receive any document, remember the word document because you're docking the ship in the airport, is a recorded according to the following case site, Biffle versus Morton Rubber Industry Incorporated, 785 SW 2ND 143144. This is Texas, 1990. An instrument in turned law is determined an instrument is determined in law at the time it is validated. So the minute the clerk puts the stamp on it, it is filed. It is administratively filed. So, and that's the one thing you need to comprehend. Once it's filed, marked filed, and it doesn't even have to be marked filed, so long as that it was returned to the clerk, and the clerk put the stamp on it, it says it on this law, that it's filed. It's a signature contract filed with the docking of your instrument in that dock. And also, too, that it is validated, enforceable, and because even in electronic or electronic signature records. So if it's done electronically with an email, that's considered by this law that it's filed with your senator, congressman, House of Representatives. And so that's the one thing that when I do the other emails this week dealing with the rights to travel that I'm pushing on. Because see, if I could get this traveler's card pushed on and have them pay for it. Yes, you heard me right. Them pay for it. Because under House Resolution 192 by Congress, certified Congress, that we do have it certified. We do have it out there. And so that is the main point that you have to know, that when it's out there filed, that it is filed. You have the right. Now, when we get this other stuff done, I want to go after them on the filing because I want to make sure that all the stuff is filed with them on our rights to travel. And believe me, these people are talking about it up at the Capitol. I mean, I emailed each and every House, Senate member, including Legislative Council. So they know that we're pushing on it. And everybody's panicking because Dexter Johnson is the head of Legislative Council for the state of Oregon, and he's the one who wrote in this instrument, and I'll pull it up and actually read the instrument to you here in a minute, what he actually wrote. See, this is the one thing that these men and women put this stuff in writing, and so that way we want to utilize their words, their writings, their factual circumstances, their words. See, we use their words, and then this way, what? we're going to get in trouble. I do agree with one gentleman that, yes, try to get everything certified. Get it stamped before you leave the building. Try not to think about it tomorrow. I mean, I'm in a unique situation where I'm at because I don't have transportation around me. So it is one of those circumstances of life that, I deal with. Can I go out there whining and crying and everything else? No, not technically. Can't do that, but I mean, I'm dealing with things the best way I personally can. And so by me personally dealing with everything I personally can, I'm still be able to do by email. I'm still lucky that I'm on the phone and online right now. Because like I said, I haven't had an income in 3 months from my disability and stuff, and I didn't cause it to myself. That's the thing that disturbs me, and that's why I question myself. Why did I put my life on the line to protect somebody else? But then again, I have to think about the point is that we all do that. We all have done it at one point of our life. So that's called human compassion. And we all have that. And so I want to see that brought forward further. So once we start bringing that and we start getting our public servants to honor their oath of human compassion, we could change a lot more than what's being changed. And we are working on these things, yes, and it is happening. These things are really starting to change. I notice that you are starting to see some of these change in your local court systems. I was informed in 2 states now that they're taking the terrorist flag down, the war flag down. They're not flying anything in the buildings or the courtroom as of yet. It would be nice if they actually started flying the peace flag in them. That would be a blissful change. We could all stand by that one. And so that's the one thing that we have the knowledge to do this stuff. We have the education to do it. And that's up to us to do this stuff and force these men and women to do their job. And we know that we got a lot of radicals out there, but the one thing is I do know that we have elected and public officials that do listen to us. I do know that for a fact. And I congratulate those men and women who are honoring their servitude. And we have to honor their servitude, even though it is in debt notes when you retire. And I have talked to several public servants that do know the truth. When they do retire, they can file themselves out of that system. They do know it. So with the people that are learning this, and we have only been opening our eyes up realistically for the past 15 years because of the communications, and including the communications for Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. We wouldn't have a lot of stuff on Facebook going on if it wasn't for that. How come we don't sit there and recognize, yes, they might be selling our personal information. Okay, I have a thing on my Facebook page and all my stuff. You want to sell my information and I catch you, I own you. I sue you. It's that simple. And I have templates of that, and it's in my letters and stuff I've sent out. And you folks can use it. You have to make your claim. You can't make a claim and then all of a sudden not enforce it. So you have to make your claim and enforce your claim. And by doing that, that's how we're getting further along in these circumstances of people listening, people getting these things structurally done. And so it is making headway. We've got to realize that we are physically making headway in the system. We are getting bucked like crazy. If you watch these Democrats on national news, screaming and yelling that, you're destroying us and you're destroying democracy. You're damn right we're destroying democracy. We want you and your devil to go back to hell. We don't want you in our country. You're not welcomed. And it's true. You are not welcomed here. We don't want you here. So that is the one thing that people have got to start working together and protecting and preserving this. And we are doing it. Yes, it's taking us time to put these instruments together and to pass them out. Yes, it's taking us time to trust one another because a lot of us have been screwed over by so many others, even helping them out financially. A lot of us have lost tens of thousands of dollars helping people out. Oh, we're going to back you up. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then when the shit hits the fan with you, they never show up. They're not around. But they're always there for themselves. And see, that is the heartache that we're living. They're there for themselves, but they're not there for we the people. And so that's the one thing that several of us on Facebook are passing around. Who to trust and who not to trust. We've been bouncing that around. We talk to each other on the phone. And that's the one thing I admire about the honorable men and women we do have out here. But let's get more and more of our public servants to be honorable. Yes, we know that if they speak out in certain points, they could be attacked. Just like you and I could be attacked. And this is the one point for people in Oregon. I haven't done the rest of the state. We are doing that eventually. But in the state of Oregon, payment instrument means any electronic, written check, draft, money order, traveler's check, or other electronic or written instrument or order. And remember, order means like when a judge does an order and all that, that's an order. When you go to the grocery store, you get an order. You go to the restaurant, you place an order for transmission or payment of money sold or issued. I love that, payment sold or issued to one or more persons, whether or not the instrument is negotiable. Payment of the instrument does not include any credit card, voucher, any letter or credit instrument that is redeemable by insurance, goods, or services. So think about that. What is a payment? Electronic. Is it a dollar bill handed to one another? It doesn't say that. It's reading these things. They're like money mechanics that I put out too. USC Title 12, 411. The meaning of money. You can't use a debt note to pay property taxes or debt or technically any water bill or anything that we're passing around today, because that's called the national debt that they keep racking up that the British government owes. Remember, the bankers went bankrupt. And they keep going, well, we the people went bankrupt in the 1920s. How the hell are you going to go bankrupt when not everybody had a checking account? Hardly anybody did. Hardly anybody had, paper dollar bills, even Civil War dollar bills back then. We didn't have the payment structure as what we have today in structure. See, this is the one thing is comprehending what these words mean, where they are from, how they came to, where they're from. And working together on these things, this is how we are able to put these things together so we can protect one another. And we are starting to do a pretty damn good job of getting this stuff out there and educating one another. We're getting more and more trust to one another, so this way we are working better with one another. And it does take trust because we've all been screwed. How many people? I mean, look at several people that dealt with the Bundy situation, ended up in court or jailed, and then trying to get these people to comprehend to go after these public servants who jailed them. Oh, no, we're going to let them be. God will take care of them. Well, okay, good for your God to take care of them, but meanwhile, you lost the livelihood and the time with your family. That's acceptable, I see, from you. Not the same way on it. So, but anyhow, what I'm going to do is I think we're going to open up the floor now, see what's going on, and I don't know who's calling me. I'll deal with that later. But this is the one thing that is to put these pieces together. We are working on some of these instruments, getting them out. The one thing is that we don't want to hear hearsay. We have a little bleep for that, and he'll play that here in a minute. So this way, we want to see factual letters. Do it again. Yeah, we got to get it where it doesn't sound like you're speaking on a police radio. But, you know, these are things that bring in these things together so that way we have the knowledge, the information to bring together. And, you know, learning about some of these past court cases, like the Dred Scott case, the real part of the case compared to what people mislead others by. See, we don't want to get out there and get misled by people. We want the truth on these things. And once we start getting the truth out, we can start making sure that these things happen a lot better. You know, we do have these laws out there that these men and women do not go by. So we got to start making sure that these men and women start going by. And everybody says, well, you got to do it by your vote in your election. Okay. Well, I don't vote. I don't participate in a foreign corporation. I'm not a foreign agent that wants to accept that livelihood of those confusions that are being dictated out to the general public. I don't want to participate in a democracy. In a democracy, you get a right to vote if you're able to steal somebody's money or not, to rape, rob, and pillage them. Now, in a republic form of government, you don't get a chance to rape, rob, and pillage. If you don't follow through, you're screwed. And so that's the one thing that we need to make sure that we're putting this out. So anyhow, I'm going to open up the floor, and let's see what if anybody's got any comments and the structure. Let's get that out. And because I've still got writing and stuff to do. I've got a few people that I'm got to finish up some conversations with tonight that we're putting together some thoughts here that, you know, eventually we're going to be bringing out. And in the state of Oregon, look at 3002Title28USC3002. Claim exemptions. These are dealing with taxes and stuff. You know, and that's the one thing. I always love it when they say signature. I don't sign. I autograph. Anything that says signature, I do literally scratch it out and write the word autograph. Autograph has value. Signature is a dead man's hand. Even though it's been proven in Bouvier and Black Law Dictionary, a signature is one and the same. Yeah, we get it. And it's like, but see, it depends on if we have an honorable public servant or not. So those are things that to bring out to the surface here. And so that way we got more and more we're working on. I am bringing more and more out on the property taxes issue. I still got a lot more research to do, a lot more, but I'm trying to put all this stuff together so that way it correlates into one structure, so it's easier to go through compared to me fighting through it all, as well as, you know, we're all doing it. A lot of us, some of us have more experience than others doing this. So, and we do appreciate and thank those who are passing the knowledge on. And so that's the whole point, without one another working on these issues. You know, our children, your bloodline, don't have a choice, no future. It does get frustrating when the present children today don't comprehend, or their head is so buried in a video game. It is sad that kids are that buried in the video games. You know, I mean, they'll even fight you, have a physical fight over a video game. That always stuns me when kids act that way. So, but anyhow, like I said about 5 minutes ago, I'm going to shut up and open the board.
Okay, so you don't need me anymore.
What do you mean? You're running the board.
Right, but you said you would open up the board.
Well, all right, I correct my wording.
All right, and the one that called you is actually in here right now, so. I think.
Oh, okay, he is.
I believe. I'm not sure. Let's see.
All participants are unmuted.
Oh, Edward.
Yes.
It's me, Nene.
Nene, it's good to hear from you. How you been doing?
I'm good. I'm okay.
I'm glad to hear.
I just caught you live streaming on the YouTube. I was researching. I'm calling from up here, upstate New York.
Okay, you're back up that area.
Yeah, I'm here with Donald Smoke.
Good. Hey, Donald, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, we filed the lawsuit against the state of New York and New York State, against the State Regis, Mohawk Tribal Police Department. And they're saying they don't have jurisdiction, so I beat it on the jurisdiction issue. I challenged the jurisdiction on Title 25 Indians, subsection 232 and 233. And that Title 25 applies to all Indians across Turtle Island. And I proved that it is not a positive law. And the two pillars that Rome holds over the native people to act like they have jurisdiction in state and federal courts on and off the reservation in civil and criminal matters. So I proved that no clan mothers and headmen and chiefs have ever signed over their authority and given up their rights over the tribal members in the state of New York. So the tribal clan mothers and the headmen and chiefs are restored. Since my case 2016 is the state of New York versus Nene, and that case number is 131000007. 131000007. And that's the state of New York versus Nene. And that is a precedent historical case in New York, which would be the capital of the United States of America back in the days that you're speaking of there. Was New York, where that Empire State Building is. So we beat them here, and I wanted to share that information with your listeners and with you also, that case is in the books and in stone, that no clan mothers have ever signed over their authority to the state of New York or New York State corporations, to the Rome or to Britain, England, or D.C. That in 1948 is when they claim to have made this agreement with the Haudenosaunee, the Ongwehoi, also known as the Iroquois Confederacy.
Right.
And I challenged those two statutes, those two pillars that they were calling 232 and 233. And I proved that under Title 25, 232, 233, which affects every Indian across Turtle Island, that there's no clan mothers that have ever signed over their authority in 1948 or present today. So it's the case was in 2016. I barely made it back up here this past month after being detained in Kansas, and so I just barely made it back up here 2 years later to bring that case back up here and bring it to the fire and to the ceremony and to the people here, to the traditional people, to clan mothers and the headmen and chiefs that have now been sharing this information with them up here at the head.
Are you telling me they haven't been bringing that out at all?
What's that?
You're telling me nobody's been bringing that case out publicly at all since you've been gone?
No. It's censored news, huh, Edward? I was almost killed in Kansas on the last case. They tried to choke
I know.
me there. And that was they had a chance there to kill me because I put a $666 trillion billion billion or what's 9 zeros
Right.
lawsuit. So trillions, I think, lawsuit on the state of New York for false imprisonment and false arrest it's still there at the Court of Claims right now. It's been 2 years now. So Eric T. Schneiderman resigned, and that was the Attorney General for the corporate here in the state of New York and New York State. And so he's no longer there. There's this Judge Collins out of Court of Claims here. And I'm informing the people here at this community and at this village and across New York that if there's anybody listening and if anybody understands how lawsuit and tort claim works, or a class action lawsuit, is that I filed a large number on the lawsuit that anyone who has experienced the same injustice as what I went through, being detained by Matt Rourke, who's the captain of the St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Incorporated Agency, is also able to join in a class action lawsuit with my case. And then it would be for all people here in New York that have been violated of their rights from being taken from their community here, from the village, into state courts and being prosecuted, being put in parole, probation, incarcerated, detained, mental health, having their children stolen and trafficked and everything else. And then there's people that are on probation and parole, that these people need to be released now. And so that's how I'm showing these people right now. I heard you speaking about telling people to file charges once you win cases, or you don't have to win the case. Go ahead and file federal criminal complaints on them as soon as possible for their trespasses, on
And
your
their
rights.
assault.
Right, and they're on your rights. So I did inform the community here. I shared a video also myself about it with Donald Smoke here on the YouTube channel I have also, Nene Warrior channel. It's on the YouTube. But I share some information about where I'm at right now, and I'm very near the Red Oak Mason base here. I'm right here in near the St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Agency, and I'm right here at where the church is registered to Franciscus from Rome, and it's a 6 mile by 6 mile by 6 mile triangle distance 666 that they have the people here under this Hogansburg Triangle that they call it, which is under UCC, under Admiralty Maritime, to usurp tribal law, tribal custom, and usage, where they're using this Title 25, 232, 233 to usurp and bury the tribal clan mothers, headmen, and chiefs, meaning the Ark. Bury the Ark and bring water above it, which is the UCC, the red, white, and blue and gold flag onto Turtle Island. And when that happens here at this community, which is the head of Turtle Island, all native people that inhabit and live on Turtle Island know the creation story of how we called this land Turtle Island, and the land that is placed on the back of the turtle shell, which is the landmass that we're floating on right now. And that's a short story, but in that sense, that how to take the head of Turtle Island is to take control of the head, and the body will follow the head. And that's
Right.
what's happening. That's what's happening here. And the reason it's important that this happens here is that in 1778, or if I'm wrong, is when Napoleon Bonaparte and England and everybody was fighting over the rights to control Egypt, knowing that those are where the gods came and lived and have gone, and where Rome, Greece, and is stolen from there. All the gold stolen from there. David and everyone else that you know the stories of on to this day. So the descendants of England of Egypt are right here in this community. They don't want the world to know that this is right here. The head of Turtle Island is the descendants of Egypt gods. Egyptian gods are Iroquois, Lakotas, Teneh, also known as Navajo people, and a lot of indigenous people are the bloodline lineages of Egyptians. But for sure right here is wampum belts and things written in stone and history tablets that say that right here is the true bloodline descendants of Egyptian gods right here, and they don't want the world to know that these people are right here and that they're over here constantly fucking them over, okay,
Right.
and trying to get into this triangle where that they can usurp this, because this is a very powerful vortex here, and the vortex is called the Cygnus, and the Cygnus is a natural stargate, a portal into sky world and creation, where stars are born and where stars go, and where gods, these things are here in this way, and creation is put this way. But because this is happening here at this community, and the people no longer can recognize who they are, which was the master plan to destroy their language, their clan, their matriarchal clan, which we call the relation between them and the Creator, has been blocked by these two pillars called 232 and 233, which, if it happens to this community here, it happens to every native community down the body. So it puts us all under jurisdiction of the corporate and also federal on our own lands, because it happens right here. There's Washington, D.C., and all these other places over there, but the real things have to happen right here. And how Washington functions with the charter from Britain and England and Rome, and is that there are traitors here in this community. Okay, there's internal traitors that a lot of people don't know, that there are native Masons working internally here day and night against their community here, and when they can sway the community to vote this way or that way, and allow things to go through, it allows things to go through into Washington, into Congress, into Senate. So these guys bring people through here, dance them around like China, like Trump, like King and Queen Elizabeth, all these crooks that they bring through this community, and act like the tribal and the headmen are not even around, or they might even present to them, oh, okay, might make a show of it, but really they're under orders, and they're taking orders from Rome, from the powers, okay? Masonically, and so these traitors are bringing this through right here, acting like it's okay with the gods, with the people, with the Ongwehoi, with the holy people, stomping over sacredness right here. So we proved that here in this community that the water law has to go back to the water, and that the Pope has to return his people back to this way, wherever they came from with the Dutch, the British, the Romans. That
Right.
we showed Creator, and we proved to Creator that there's still native people here, and I'm just an extension of my elders here who have done these works and have hung on to these knowledge. Meaning, Gawanyantis, the elder here I speak of, is who also as Dull Knife and Donnie Smoke, but he has shared his knowledge with me of this since 2012, where I took this knowledge to heart, and we also call ourselves the surface holy people of this land here. We call Mother Earth Turtle Island, and in that sense, I understood what he was talking about, coming from traditional value and being raised that way with the language, and having grown up around the sacred fire and knowing about the stars, and that where I would return when life was finished here on this earth. But I didn't know the extent of how France and London and England and Rome were fighting over Egypt to think, knowing that whoever gained control of Egypt would rule the world. But now I know this, and now I share this with the listeners there, that we are still here, and there's no way that Rome gets to continue this way. We challenged their jurisdiction, and we proved that Rome has no jurisdiction, corpus juris secundum, and that he had to restore the Constitution for the United States, for America, in 2016, on September 28th.
Well, I'm glad to hear you, and I'm glad that that's happening now.
Well, that has a lot to do with everyone's prayers and support out there, who hung on to that hope, and had that prayer. So I thank everybody out there, and I thank you also for sharing that knowledge and continuing to share that knowledge with me and that with all the listeners out there across Turtle Island. And so I extend my prayer and my solidarity with all the freedom fighters and with all the warriors and brothers and sisters who are locked up, that you may know about this case law that states that you should challenge jurisdiction because you've been incarcerated and detained based on a social security number that will never belong to you, but belongs to the Social Security Administration and may not be used for identification purposes. So
Right.
how I used it in court is that I challenged the jurisdiction pursuant Title 25, Section 232, 233 is in violation of the Truro Wampum Treaty, which was made in 1612, 1613 with the Dutch first, then Britain, then Rome. And if the Constitution is being held up by everyone who made that treaty, the Truro Wampum, then that there's an article in there, the Article 6, Paragraph 2 states that the treaties are the supreme law of the land, and it's also called the Supremacy Clause, that every judge in every state is bound by this Supremacy Clause.
Correct.
And that any state constitutions or any statutes or codes or rules or regulations that are contrary to this Supremacy Clause, that treaties are the supreme law of the land, anything contrary to that is notwithstanding, meaning that it's not in effect. And there's no state constitution or any rules or regulations that can stand up to a treaty. And the treaty that you would use would be the 1612 treaty, which says the Two-Row Wampum Treaty. There's two lines on there, purple lines. One purple line states that Native people would always remain under tribal law, custom, and usage, meaning clan mothers, headmen, and chiefs. The other purple line states that the Dutch, the British, the Romans, and all the visitors who step foot onto Turtle Island would adopt the Great Law of Peace. And if that flag of peace and that Constitution for the United States for America is to uphold the peace, then that's what it means right there. It doesn't mean the Constitution of the United States of America, Admiralty Maritime Law, gold trim flag. It says that this would be for as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, the river flows, meaning for time immemorial, as forever as the sun shines.
Right.
And today the sun shines, the grass grows, and the river is still flowing right here where that treaty was made. That's where I'm at, under the Cygnus, under the blue heron. So from here at the head of Turtle Island, I can report back to your listeners and to that constellation and those mountains there in Oregon that we are victorious, and that there's a case law that people can use in what they would call over here the United States of America. There's a case, not in the corporate side of things either, in the real side over here, where the 13 colonies are. And also I have the case in New Mexico and also in Oregon and South Dakota. All of them for the same thing, that they tried to push a social security number back on me, the one that I gave back to them, because again on the social security card it says this card belongs to the Social Security Administration. So I returned that social security card back to them with the SS5 form, a withdrawal form, and a stop that account. And I got it authenticated, these documents, at the Secretary of State here in Albany, New York, and also in New Mexico. I did the same things from the Secretary of State, from their Commander-in-Chief. So I had, the only reason I got the passport was because I needed a way of identification, because I was renouncing United States citizenship, meaning I don't want to participate, and I cannot participate in the Social Security Slave Surveillance Program any longer as a citizen, or as somebody that's going to pay part of a debt that I'm not responsible for to the United States corporation. So if I'm resigning and renouncing that citizenship, now I need the passport. So the passport is what I got from the Lakota Free and Independent Nation, and with that card, it didn't have no social security number attached to it, and I took that passport to the Secretary of State, the Commander-in-Chief of New York, and I got it authenticated through the Supreme Court clerk, which means I got it notarized and I got it stamped and received and filed in Albany. And then I took it back over to the Secretary of State, Commander-in-Chief, Andrew Cuomo's office there, and I had it authenticated for $10. And that authentication would say that they verify my passport as an international passport, driver's license / passport with a diplomat number on it. And it has, again, no social security number. The name is spelled in small letters, and I used a blood thumbprint on the notary and on the seal, meaning that I'm a live, living man, not a corporate fictitious dead entity. And so I let and informed by this authentication to the United States of America and the United States of America Incorporation that I had this passport, and it was validated by the Supreme Court clerk, the Supreme Court, and by Andrew Cuomo and Sandra Tillman and that I was going to use this authentication with this international passport while I'm within or without the United States, and that I would use it outside of the United Kingdom in all countries, an international passport. So having this Supreme Court seal and this New York State Secretary of State seal, I knew that I'm unbeatable in federal court or state courts, and that I have standing. But they keep fucking with me and arresting me to shut me up, to share this type of information with the people. That's how you gain sovereignty, true sovereignty. That your tribal agencies are just Duns and Bradstreet companies, CIA agents who are keeping an eye on you still today, and that they're not that they're not informing the public, tribal members, that they have a right to be under tribal law, custom, and usage, meaning under tribal.
Yeah, that's exactly what me and Kawasha was talking about this morning.
Right, and that is under what they made in 1924, which is called the Citizenship Act, Snyder Act, also known as the Snyder Act, which says that you have a choice to be a citizen of the corporation and be a debt slave, or you have a choice to be under tribal law, customs, and use it under clan mothers, headmen, and chiefs.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Why don't we look at probably next week to do probably 40 minutes going over this subject so we can clarify things for people if they got questions so they can bring it up. Would you be willing to do that next Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, you know my number still, so it hasn't changed.
Hold on. You got anything to add, Donnie?
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. It goes back a little further than that, but that's putting it right out there. I take it back to when Moses and Aaron buried the ark. Huh?
Well, I know, because you and I talked about that before. Eventually, I want to get all this brought forward to the table so people can get another side of history that is from the natives compared to what we've been wrongfully taught in our history books from mind control of the structure that we've been going through for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
So no, I'm on the same page, Donald. That's what I said. Now, next Saturday, I'd like to get you guys on this so we could walk this through, because people need to hear, what the Indian structure is and our native laws are compared to what we've been taught. Because I'm native. I have friends of mine who are native, just like you are native, and my friends, you and, Naini. And this is the one thing that people don't comprehend, because we've been so doctrinized until we started opening our own eyes and bringing it out. And yes, I know, because I'm fighting on more structure since I started talking than anybody knows, but some people know. But you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Next Saturday, I'd like to bring this up to the table on next Saturday. Like I said, that's going to work with you?
Yeah.
Okay, because this is the point that, I want to get real native history from the elders who learned it from their elders, so this way we're not sitting there interpreting. We already know the stories, but also, too, you're older than us, and you've lived through more than we have.
Yeah, well, it's all oppression, huh?
Yeah, all that oppression. I just want to also share with the people that I know there's a lot of information going on out there. Jordan Maxwell, InfoWars, a lot of names. Okay, Collins.
Knutz and everybody else.
Herschel Walk. I mean, a lot of these people are giving a lot of information, but I want you to know that they are Masons. Okay, a lot of these people who are giving a lot of this scientific knowledge, Hawass, Herschel, all of these people are not native people. They're Jewish people. Okay.
Yes, I know.
And so they're giving some information, but they're giving you the shit that they want you to believe, how they're getting into pyramids and things like this. Just know that part, that they're bullshitting about a lot of stuff. So yes, it is true that it's time for us to shed some light on what's really going on, and that these Masons are in trouble right now. Okay, and that's where you're experiencing seeing all creation working against them right now, with all the earthquakes, with all the volcanoes, with all the floods. Okay, and I'll leave it off at that right now. Thanks for letting me talk with you there, and it's good to hear you. Thanks for being out there sharing that information with the people. Thank you.
Thank you for finally getting contact and quit keeping yourself buried in the hole.
Yeah, I was recuperating. You know, they tried to kill me this last time, and they got me 3 times in a row, man. It took me 2 years to get back up here.
Yeah, no, I know that, because, you know, we've been following each other for the last 2 years, bouncing around back and forth. So I know exactly, because I've been through it with you.
Yeah, so I thought I'd give you a call. I just happened to come across your page here that you were live streaming on YouTube. I don't do much on that Facebook anymore. It caused too much trouble from the Zuckerberg and all of them, you know, tracking and all that type of stuff. The less they know from me, it's okay.
Oh, yeah, no, I got you on that one. I'm just doing it because, I know that they're watching me, and I know the reason why.
Right. So I don't want to give them every play-by-play from me, and I'd rather try to be a little bit careful around right now what we're doing, you know.
No,
they're desperate right now, okay? They're desperate, so you keep on your toes, and you keep taking care of yourself. And blessings to all the listeners, and my prayers, and blessings to everyone's fire, and to that water, and to that good spirit within. One mind and one spirit, one voice, one heartbeat. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, my friend. Anyhow, if anybody didn't know, or you don't know about 9E, he's got a YouTube channel, 9E Warrior. I've dealt with 9E myself for the last few years. Especially I met him when he came to Oregon. When Oregon in my county tried to basically they assaulted him too, and went after him on traveling rights. Same time I went through it again too back then, and so it is interesting with the circumstances of these things that are finally opening up more and more, like I was bringing up earlier. And it is taking all of us. We're opening this stuff up. I will be getting a copy of this case. We'll get that posted up, because I want to sit down and read that one, because I've been, partly involved in that going back for the last few years in several cases on that. So, but this is the whole point. And the one major point that I want to emphasize to people, it's like we have other men and women that have brought up in our conversation, and everybody keeps going. Question jurisdiction. Then you have to know what law they're preaching, what law that they're talking. It's like when I was talking to another individual earlier this morning, and his response was a judge that, well, are you pleading guilty or not guilty? He goes, what do you mean by plead? I'm not pleading anything. I can't plead to you. There's nothing to plead. And it's like, what do you mean to plead for something? And it's not like I'm doing a plea bargain or anything, because I haven't hurt anybody. Where's the injured party? And that's the other thing, too. You always want to ask them, too. You want the injured party and their affidavit from the injured party, as well as their so-called administrative district attorney. Because a district attorney cannot write an affidavit for anyone. And that's their administrative rules. Even for a child, the affidavit has to be written by a blood relative, technically. That's why they keep stealing kids and bouncing around through foster parents and foster care, because they can't have a true instrument because there's no one to put the true instrument in for the child. First comes down to that as bloodline, and then, actual friends of the family that can actually put an affidavit on their structure of how they personally know the child in the circumstance. Even male and female, if they're mentally retarded, incapacitated. Because that's a scary thing to me in Oregon, because in the state of Oregon, if you are what they call Alzheimer's, mentally retarded, loss of memory, anything, basically, they passed administrative law that says if you're in a hospital or a hospice, they can starve you to death. And that's really what it comes down to. And people go, oh, well, they're only doing that and say they can starve the disabled or the elderly to death. Well, folks, look in the mirror. What if you are that man or woman or even child in that position? Wake up. And remember, that bill was Kate Brown's bill, the attorney for the Spain government and the British government. And to my comprehension and understanding and knowledge, she used to be one of Hillary Clinton's attorneys when she got out of law school. So it is interesting how all these dominoes and these things are coming together, and these people are now finally, after 20 and 30 years, being tied together by the mainstream media. Oh, wait a minute. We the people are doing it. Because if the mainstream media actually were doing it, these crimes and stuff would have been stopped by now. The courts wouldn't be running right now today. So, but they got to keep these so-called jobs going. And remember, 40% of your jobs in our country right now today are not American jobs at all. We got foreigners raping our soil. Oh, we need more oil. What do we need more oil for, people? We got satellite. We've got solar. We got wind power. We've already got the stuff that we could generate. I mean, even the garbage companies, they could burn the trash, 30, 40 miles from the cities, and they could generate all the electricity for the cities permanently because the trash could be burned. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is an old story. It's coming out of Rome, the Roman civil law. It was like the full power of the state. They had case law, but they did not let case law to have set precedent. You cannot use case law as precedent, and it's been that way. It's the full power of the state. Now Rome fell, but the Catholic priests with their robes, and which mimicked all the judges. They proliferated that all through the world. And they succeeded where Rome fell. So they're pushing this powerful Roman civil law, and case law was for the people. The people would have an input to the laws that were being set. And they deliberately dumbed down case law and common law. We were, like Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, they were common law lawyers that they didn't have access to all the fancy law books, so they just basically went off the Bible and case law, and that was what they ruled by. And with the jury, the juries were the judges. Whatever they ruled, that was it. But so civil law is this Roman civil law that is trying to take over.
Yeah. No, and we got that. I mean, they've been doing that since they came over, and even when they spawned off in Spain and all this stuff. I've argued with one gentleman that his family, he says that his family owns San Francisco because of a treaty that was done, that he's claiming like 500 years ago, and it's like, okay, let's see the treaty. I mean, you can't sit there and preach something when you don't have the factual evidence. And, if the treaty exists, who do they write the treaty with? And not only that, the treaty can't be honored because it wasn't done with the natives, we the natives. I mean, I can't come into your house and write a treaty with your neighbor on how you're going to live in your home. You know, like I say to people, you know, that people go through these points of, the illegals should have all these rights and freedoms. I don't have a right to come in your home, sit down, and take the remote in my hand, turn your TV on, go grab a beer or a drink, grab my food, and sit down in your chair. You know, if we lost respect and comprehension and understanding of one another, we've lost reality.
It's like,
and once we've done, go ahead.
Yes, it's like, as I understand it, it's your contract law is the highest form of law. Mm-hmm. Just under that is common law.
Article 1, Section 10.
Yeah,
contract law. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all those other statutes and codes, that was not really for the American people. That was for the British inhabitants
right
here.
And that's true. It was a setup for the immigration only to follow. That was immigration rules and regulations, and that was actually founded in 1770. And no, you're right on that, because it wasn't set up for us. It was set up for them because they came from a foreign country, and they had to show respect, courtesy, and pleasure of pleasing to be in our presence here. It was supposed to be a privilege for them to be here as natives. I mean, as immigrants are privileged. Go ahead.
They were not allowed to own land, and that's why they were called residents, non-residents. And
right.
And from their perspective, you know, if you're not one of them and you're not obliged to pay taxes like a federal citizen, you are called a non-resident alien because you're not a resident. Because they are residents, they can't own land.
That's right. You know, and that's the one thing, like, what I'm standing on, because, I mean, you know, I know my blood history, how far it goes back. I've filed it with the Oregon State House and Senate. I grew up in politics literally since I was basically a baby in San Francisco, you know, with politicians, you know, Brown and all of them when I was growing up until the 1980s. So, go ahead, may I?
Yeah, definition. Yeah, definition out of Black's Law, 10th edition, page 781. Free law, the civil rights enjoyed by a freeman as opposed to a serf. Free man, someone who enjoys all the civil and political rights belonging to the people under a free government. Someone who is not a slave. I hope everybody understands where they're at. What's their status?
Yeah, read that again one more time, please.
Okay. This is Black's Law, page 10th edition, page 781. Free law, the civil rights enjoyed by a free man as opposed to a serf. In other words, as opposed to someone that don't have rights.
Right, servant or whatever, slave, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
Yeah. Now, definition of free man. Someone who enjoys all the civil and political rights belonging to the people under a free government. Someone who is not a slave. I think that makes it pretty clear. Everyone is presumed to be a voluntary slave. You either have all these civil rights, i.e. civil rights, or your Constitution rights, or you don't. An example, and it fits pretty good with what I'm thinking tonight, if you do not have civil rights to travel, you are
a slave.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
you are not a free man if you do not have rights. A right to travel. What did Clintons do? You brought that up. Executive order that the Clintons put in. Privileges to travel is a license. License to travel is a privilege. So we're all treated as slaves.
Well, don't forget Clinton's bill, executive order, I think it was 13099, said that we're all human capital.
That's right, voluntary slaves.
That's when I send these things out, because I get some guys will get upset with me when I send out some of these statute codes and administrative rules, and they're going, you can't do that way because you're entering in their game when you do that. And I'm going, well, and if anybody reads my disclaimers I put out there and all my letters and everything I do, I'm technically, because I just claiming them. I don't claim there are statute codes and administrative rules. And a valid point that I had somebody bring me up to my attention, because I sometimes will use whereas, like an attorney does, or legalese. But somebody brought up a wonderful point that is using it, say reference to. So it's a reference to, so it's like, they know it's their law, it's just referencing their information. I had somebody else trying to suggest going a different way. But, it's like, I like the reference to, because the point is you're referencing to what their administration is, not what you're to go by. And that's the way I look at it. Go ahead.
A few years ago, a guy would come to me with some problems, and so I suggested that he challenge the jurisdiction. He didn't want to do that. It was a problem with the Department of Revenue, the State Department of Revenue. So he decided to accept their administrative court, and it cost him a lot of money. Of course, after it was all done and when it was too late, and he found out that the administrative court judge, he worked for the Department of Revenue. So, it was just an employee.
Yeah.
Under the executive side. And that's your administrative law judges. They're not Constitution judges.
And you never want to go by administrative law judge, ever.
Well, that's right. And that's what people are using, and even with their rights to travel. I
want to bring up a point. I want to bring up a valid point here on this one, going through administrative judges, because I've done that about, I think, 11 times. Because Workman's Comp has brought me through their administrative law judge through their system. And I got forced into their administrative law judge stuff. And I even went to one court where I walked in, and I won every Workman's Comp case that I ended up going to court, because I fought them all myself. I won each and every one of them, even by administrative law judges. And one, I went to Salem, and a friend of mine was the one who took me over there. And we went over there, and we walked into the court, and we couldn't even get to the court date before the courtroom before we were basically assaulted by 2 state troopers. And we're like, what's going on here? And the one state trooper is going, well, where's your gun? Where's your gun? I'm looking at him going, what the hell are you talking about a gun? I'm here to so-called see this judge on my Workman's Comp case. Well, we got word that you're bringing a gun to the case. What? My file? My folder with my evidence? And so I ended up with these 2 state troopers sitting with me throughout the court, the whole deal, hawking eyeing me, ready to pounce on me if I farted wrong. On the edge of their seat. And I'm going through this. I'm finally to the judge. I said, why the hell am I going through this torture right now? Which I still can file, and I plan on filing back on it. That's part of everything when I'm dealing with all this stuff, because you wouldn't believe how bad my case is, what I've gone through. But anyhow, it's like, and she's going, Well, we got information that you were possibly having a gun with you. Where would you people come up with something crazy like that to make the shit up? You know, well, if they heard from one person or from one of the people in the county, one of the commissioners, because I always travel with a sidearm. Yeah, I said, you don't see a sidearm on me, do you? Do you see a sidearm holster? I mean, my holster, now, I'm not telling you where my information or instrument is, but you have no rights anyways. But why would I sit there?
Hey.
Go ahead.
From my perspective, you have a Second Amendment right under the Constitution.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I'm not arguing that point.
Okay, if you're a free man, then you have a right to pack your, whatever you want to call it, your Second Amendment right with you wherever you go. Show me in the Constitution where it says you can't take it here and you can't take it there.
Oh, no, trust me, I've been there. I usually walk around with mine on my hip.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Even if you had something there, your Second Amendment right, well, doesn't that come under the supreme law of the land?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they're just playing these games.
Yeah, I know.
What they're doing is they're saying, you know, the presumption is everybody's a slave. They don't have any rights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the problem is. That's why I read the definitions to you of a free man. You're either a free man with all your civil rights, or you're a slave.
Yes, no, and that's I'm agreeing with you. Go ahead.
If you either you're a British, one of their British subjects, subject to all of their laws, or you're not. You're American national, and that's what they do. If they're trying to nail you down to be one of their citizens or a British subject, and you got no rights at all if you're a British subject. I stand back.
Oh, no problem. But the one thing, too, is that you have to realize under Executive Order 2040, all citizens and all nationals are under the 1970 Trading with the Enemy Act, an enemy to we the people. You are aware of that, aren't you?
1934, SCR. That's right.
You know, so it's interesting because, you know, and that's the one thing I do appreciate everybody here, too. But it's interesting when you walk through this and you start putting these pieces together of the pie here, and you start going, holy shit. And it's like, but we've been so confused by TV, music, which don't knock music. I was in the industry on both movies and stuff, and I loved it. But I didn't get wrapped into it like some people get with, like, you know, I worked as a bodyguard with some movie stars in rock and roll, famous, really named people. When I was younger. And, you know, to me it was a blessing. But I couldn't believe how some people would go Google over people, you know, like they were goddesses, or, you know, like people go Google over like the Queen of England, which you stay over there, woman. But it's like, you know, people go Google, and it's amazing to me when I see people go Google, because it's like, how can you sit there and lose your soul and not live in reality? If that makes sense to any of you. I mean, I witnessed things. I've been in positions where I had to, you know, defend some people at times. That's, you know, where I ended up being disabled, which I would do it again, more than likely. You know, because I believe on the good side. I don't believe the negative side, and it's not about me when it comes down to it. You know, if I see something, and I've done this. Go ahead.
They're secular. They don't have any belief in any type of religion. It's all about psychopathology.
Yep.
You know, it's all about them.
That's true. And see, I've been in situations in my life where I've been around guys that went after other guys with guns, guys beating women up and then pull a gun, and I've been in those situations. I've had to pull my arm out in several cases in my life.
Hey, Ed.
So, go ahead.
Check Facebook.
Oh, I got to turn the computer back on after it crashed.
Well, you should do that almost immediately. I mean, I got to have the computer for the show, don't I?
Well, yeah, but I ended up walking out and sitting on the deck a little bit.
See, even
I'm not
whenever
used to
he's
sitting on the deck of my porch like that.
Even when he's on the show, he can still take a vacation. I can't. All right, keep going.
That's why we're so thankful for you, sir. Oh, I said the wrong word, didn't I? Did he mute me?
No, not muted. I muted myself so I wasn't bitching you out.
Oh, no, I was ready for it. I was willing to take it.
All right. Well, call me my name, Lynx, or don't call me anything because I work for a damn living. I'm not a royalty.
Okay, Lynx. But you gotta have fun sometimes. But anyhow, let me get back on the computer here. But anyhow, it's like I said, it's been things that are opening up, putting this stuff out. For the first time in my town history, I haven't seen the news report gathering going with the city council and stuff because everybody's been so afraid to stand against the people in this community. Literally. You know, me and another guy stood against this community, and they literally tried to shoot us in Main Street. Oh, yeah, I got videos where I go after these cops and judges, and been doing it for 22 years, 24 years. It's not backing down. That's the whole point.
Ed.
Yes.
You know, yeah, listen to these, like the NRA. They have, you know, authorized, you know, trainers on how to, you know, guns, how to handle guns and guns safety and all this stuff. And they're all like, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you know, you got to watch for all these. But the thing about it is when we come up as a colony or something, we were the law. The people were the law. You know, the sheriff would deputize us, or we would police ourselves. You know, like the Amish police themselves. Whenever you have the right for citizens' arrest, you know, you can't be just you kowtow to all of these laws, you know. And unfortunately, though, these courts are so corrupt. You know, they'll try to railroad you to their administrative. Well, it's supposed to be a criminal court, which is a criminal type court. Yeah, but they're going to lean on the jurors, and judges going to, you know, say you can only rule in this one little, you know, compacted little issue, and they channel it, and you know, and they control the court. So, but we've got to get back to, you know, policing ourselves. You know, we don't have they're not even legally bound to you know, to enforce all, you know, to protect you. You know, and so we got to get back to carrying guns and taking care of ourselves. That's all the point.
No, I agree with you, because the other point is, like, the Supreme Court has clearly stated that the police department is not there to protect you. The Supreme Court has clearly stated that the police department is tax revenue collectors. That's their job. And that's what they're doing to us. They're collecting tax revenue for traffic tickets, license fees, registration, making it a privilege for you to fart in the wind. You know, I mean, I can't believe people are talking and still trying to talk about doing a carbon tax. And I keep talking to people and I say, oh, so in other words, you're saying you don't have the right to breathe air. And they're going, that's not carbon. And it's like, you better go read the history and read what carbon is. You exhale. When you exhale, that's carbon. So you're saying that you have to pay the privilege to breathe. That's what you're saying to me. And people don't get it. That's what gets to me. They just sit there and look at you like you're crazy, you know, but then all of a sudden Mickey Mouse shows up and everybody's happy. you know, it's just bizarre. Don't you see how that's been working around us?
Yeah, there's one thing. If you can control the masses, like in Russia with Solzhenitsyn, Gulag Archipelago, they came for the priests. Nobody said anything. They came for the old people. They didn't say anything. And you can't mount a defense until we can get enough people educated in the town square. Right now, they control all the airways with the CIA, Project Mockingbird. And
everybody's cell phone, they control that. That's the one thing that gets to me. Everybody says how Gaddafi was bad, but if you were in Gaddafi's country and if you were bloodline native in his country, you got paid a dividend check. If you had a child in his country, you got a house. See, that's the one thing that people don't realize and look at when these people go out and attack us, because Gaddafi did our structure in our country, what our forefathers set up that we're supposed to be doing for ourselves. We don't have the hunting and fishing. Technically, we've got all these buildings, and then they want to cut more of the forest. They're trying to say, well, we need to cut the forest down. And all they're doing is trying to open up more public land so they can sit there and say, we can sell this land because nobody claimed it in 90 years. See, they're going through that 99-year contract. Does anybody know about that?
Called international law.
Huh?
It's called international law. If no one makes challenges it for 100 years, 99 years, then it becomes law as per international law. Then England can purchase it if they want to, at the time, or the Vatican, whoever. But 10 years is state law, and 100 years is international law.
Right, and see, technically, we're supposed to have international apply to the state, but they're getting away with it because nobody's standing up and knowing how to deal with it.
If no one challenges a state statute or a state law, then it stands as that law, and that's the law. And under international law, which is from country to country, if it's not challenged for 100 years, then that becomes the law internationally. Now someone from another country could purchase that piece of land. That's
right. And the reason why I really went in that direction is because of like what 9E was talking about tonight, dealing with Turtle Island. And if people don't know what Turtle Island and the native structure is, how it all goes back in the history that protects all of us, with the treaties that were done with the natives, that were done with the forefathers that came from Rome and England.
Hey, listen, I thought 9E done a really good job.
Yeah.
He explained that he covered a lot of country, a lot of territory with what he was saying. I agree with much of what he said, and I thought he was a good speaker on what he was saying. I don't have any problem with what he stated and said.
No, neither do I. I mean, I know him personally. I've had him literally in my house. He spent a week up here when he was fighting and dealing with the case up here in Lincoln County. That's how we met. Because, he met me off the internet. He found me on, Facebook. So that's how he found me, and then it was like, okay, and I'm dealing with enough guys already in here, and I'm still fighting them on my rights because I got guys that were riding around with no plates and all this stuff, and if you're going to do that, don't put a plate on your car. That's the one thing that I figured out. Even your own private plates, don't put them out there on your car. You don't have no plates, you have no identification. But anyhow, I'm dealing with that right now because I got the other letter that I'm sending back to Gumberg this week. I told you about that one. I'm getting ready to start having fun now. So, but anyhow, yeah, it's going to be one hell of an election coming up this year. I see it. But anyhow, the point that he was bringing up, dealing with Turtle Island and stuff. See, this goes back to treaties that were done even when Wounded Knee and all this stuff, when the natives come over here and they're flying the same damn war flag they fought back in 1850.
Yep.
You know, and people don't get it, and people don't get the British flag. They don't get the Confederate flag, what it really means compared to what people think it means.
But at least
Why
he
do you think it's
understood
so difficult?
he understood the gold-fringed Admiralty flag, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. And he knows about the truth of the other flag, too, because
he ought to talk to Southern. He needs to have a chat with Southern on these flags.
Oh, well, that'll be a time, whatever. But it's like, you know, we'll get everybody together. It's one of those things that we're all putting things together. We're putting information together. We're figuring out each other, and this is the beauty, because now we're starting to work with each other. But this way, at least now we know that we can accomplish stuff that's going to affect for everybody, including ourselves, and it's going to affect all of us, and it's going to protect the bloodline, your children, your grandchildren, and not only that, yours and my rights and our property. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm a mouth. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard you mention filing a claim, and that's you're accessing common law, because that's you whenever you say a court of record, you mention a claim, they use complaints. You know, whenever they file, complaint of a code or traffic ticket,
Right.
that's a complaint. Whenever you talk about claim, now you're talking about your common law, and you got to have you want a live flesh and blood human being to bring to come forward, not some fictional corporation or other representative.
No, but then that way the government employees have to come out with somebody that has to have certification, that has to prove their oath of office, that says that, yes, if I fuck up, I go to jail. It's their administrative rules the way it's written. And so when I'm going, well, we have to sit there and force them to do their job, because if they don't do their job, we need to cut their budgets. And Donald Trump just said that. If you guys have been paying attention, it's interesting when some things are coming out in the mainstream media. I loved it the way Donald Trump says, hey, we were not essentially ripping the kids out of people's arms. How come you're not going to Nancy Pelosi Feinstein's? It's a Democrats' law. They do it for their own financial gain. And he said, look at their corporations they own. Did everybody actually hear that in the news media? Donald Trump said it. I posted it all over Facebook.
May I?
Go ahead.
90, when he was talking about winning the case and what it stated about the treaty and the sixth part of the Constitution there on the supreme law of the land, that means that when Trump says under ICE and what have you, that these illegal aliens have to be gotten out of here, that Governor Brown's got to comply.
I know.
That we need to get copies of his court case, I guess.
Oh, I'm getting that. This is what I'm saying, because, well, now you realize that I've been with 9E working on this with him for a few years, don't you?
I only what you told me. I didn't know you were working with him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, haven't you ever gone on new.org and trackers?
Actually, I don't. Not very much.
My website. If you go on my website, you'll see.
Right. I know, but I have a lot of emails.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying on my website, I have a link to 9E, and it says 9E no. Because there's some things that we went through. A point of you don't do that. No. So no, I mean, I've been through 9E and several of the issues that he's gone through, and And that's the one thing. The man has heart, he has soul, and he's fought it. Now, I want to get a copy of that case because I do know getting a copy of that case when I put it over here and I put it into recorded record at the Secretary of State's office.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to say anymore. If anybody's intelligent, they already read my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and that answers your question too, don't it?
Well, yeah.
So I've been waiting on this. That's why I was blown away when 90 called.
You realize that Governor Brown could probably be arrested?
Do you know that I already filed that with the marshals?
She could be arrested for not obeying the supremacy clause.
Oh, yes. Not only that, if this court case does say that, isn't that my filing? Yes, it is. See, I remember I already filed on Kate Brown 5 years ago. It was the first filing I did on her. And then I filed on her when she became Secretary of State. Go ahead.
But you got to have something to hang your hat on. And if he's got a decision, if 9E has a decision from New York regarding like he said, then bringing that case forward against Kate Brown is where she can be arrested. That's where the ammunition is.
I know, exactly. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
May I? You brought up the supremacy clause, and it's kind of a. It says, you know, in the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Now, you know, the law of the land, that can be interpreted to just the soil, the legal term of land, but you have the soil, and that's where the root, which really is everything, you know, you're rooted in, and does somebody understand the supremacy?
You have to realize that doesn't say United States Inc. or Incorporated. It's not filed that way. You are aware of that, aren't you?
Yeah, they're talking about the Inc. Yeah, I understand that. They're referring to United the corporation is what they're referring to.
No, they're not referring to the corporation. That was before part of the corporation, because it's like you have to. When some of this stuff was written back then, when all this stuff was coming back in the 1800s, most of these states. Go ahead.
They weren't incorporated. They were a corporation, but not incorporated.
Well, they weren't actually a corporation. See, Oregon Territory, right? Oregon didn't have a corporation until 1912. They call it.
May I? If you look at the older documents that were filed, it said the state of Oregon ex-rel, or sometimes it would say the state of Oregon in the name of the people. And that's the way they came after you. After they incorporated, they had a corporation called State of Oregon. State of Oregon was always capitalized, and it was just State of Oregon versus you.
So now when you go to court in Oregon, it's the State of Oregon versus you.
Right.
90% of the cases. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You know this one good. Go ahead.
May I? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this in here is dated April the 25th, 2018. It's from the Attorney General, Rosenblum. Moreover, under Article 6, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, the Federal Supremacy Clause, state laws may not supersede the United States Constitution, and state laws may not supersede the federal laws.
Now, please read who it's from again so they can comprehend that this is real.
From the L&F Rosenblum, the Attorney General. It's it's dated April the 25th. It was regarding jurisdiction questions. And so that was the nutshell answer.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds that you shall not supersede the Constitution. Well, yeah, the Constitution, was limited in scope, and now if you say the federal laws, that's different. That's what they're drawing up. But you got Mulberry versus Madison. Anything repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. So that would make you keep it down to the Constitution level.
Right, but don't forget, all the treaties supersede all the other, because the treaties are the most powerful thing of the land.
Right.
Okay, so that's the point when they do this attack on us, and that's why thank you for bringing that point with Oregon forward. Because, the thing is that there's a lot of interesting information that's out there, but bringing it out so this way, the whole thing is you can't put a shock. It's like everybody keeps going, well, we need to kill the Federal Reserve. We need to throw the money. We need to destroy this stuff. And it's like, do people realize if the Federal Reserve stops tomorrow, I'm dealing with it. I have no food in the house, basically. I'm on the last bucket of beans and rice. Shit, hey, I live in reality right now. I've never been in this position in life. But also, too, I know the reason why I haven't had a check in 3 months because of what I'm filing, and I got Social Security panicking because I did file on Social Security on both sides. Okay? I filed on both sides. Here's your administrative rules. I'm telling you the facts. This is the whole shit, man. Yeah. And I said, here's administrative rules. Then you guys put me on workman's comp. Then you guys take my workman's comp, my disability away. Then you put me on disability, federal disability on this structure. Technically, I was in a private contract structure, and I had private insurance through my corporation. So how come my corporation passed me on to the state? And by law, because my neck was broken, I should have got a settlement instead of the attorneys get it, what goes on today, if you guys know how the system works today. Now, I should have got a settlement check of $1.2 or $2.2 million for a broken neck for being on the job. Remember, your broken limbs and stuff used to get credit for it. That's what all the lawsuits were about. So instead of the lawsuits going in where the insurance company paid checks out, this is how it all works, baby. When the insurance companies were paying the checks out, okay, and people didn't get it, then the state, some of these people, they get $2 million or $3 million for their injury or accident. They go blow the money. They didn't appreciate what they had. They didn't live, peacefully, all right? Oh, shit, I go buy a brand new car. I could buy a brand new $1 million home. I could do all this shit, and then next thing you know, they're broke. And then here's the other side of the truth. There was other men and women that said, okay, shit, I need to come to reality. I got a settlement. I figure I have to come up with so much money a year to cover medical expenses and these and that expenses, because one wants to keep it private instead of the state saying, oh, shit, if you take medication, there's an opium epidemic of bullshit that we're trying to convince the general public to believe that everybody's a drug addict and people are stupid. Well, people are stupid. If you want to kill yourself, go do your opiates and drugs and all that stuff. Kill yourself. But there are men and women out there who know how to take responsibility of their pain medication. And I've been fighting that with the state of Oregon for the last 10 years. Okay, they've told me point blank, you should die, Ed. You're a burden.
May I?
Go ahead.
It's my opinion that the legislature for Oregon is trying to make serfs out of everyone.
No, it's worse than that.
Rights,
no, it's worse than that, because I was on the phone earlier with another medical provider, and we were talking about in the state of Oregon now, a hospital can basically kill you no matter what if they want to.
Well, I guess you're a serf. You're a slave. You're not
right,
a freeman.
Because the birth certificate funding is prized more than your life.
People better wake up.
I mean, I've been informed this. I mean, you got to realize, I mean, I go in, I'm blunt with people that I talk to, doctors and medical providers. I talk to them just the way I'm talking right now. And people go, well, how come you talk this way? And can't you ever be happy? And it's like, what? I am happy. You know, I'm breathing. I'm alive. I should be traveling. I should be doing this, that, and the other thing. Why the hell am I pinned on my property basically at gunpoint? And I've got videos to prove it where they're threatening me all over YouTube and stuff. But also, too, I know that they know I'm here and they know that people are waking up. So that's the beauty of this. But like I was saying with the workman's comp, what they're doing is they want us dead. For the money, it's population control. Remember, Bill Gates was the one who funded that and was the one who poisoned a lot of kids in Africa with immunizations.
Yes.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand. It's like all soldiers have a minimum of $1 million insurance on them. And the more
No, minimum is $3 million.
Yeah. Well, they got there's no telling. You get unemployment. You get you get out a loan. They'll open up your fraud insurance on you, and they'll get money. You know, if you lose your job, and then they'll take your possessions too. So they're making money hand over fist.
Well, not only that, you got to realize they're not making one; they're actually making $3 million per one. And then when they take loans and stuff, they're bartering that on the, what do they call that, municipality bonds structure in Wall Street. You know about municipality bonds, how those work, don't you?
Yeah, they have there's fidelity investments and they're derivatives. They're buying and selling these derivatives, and that could be, anything of value. And you have your Section15 trust set up, and they're buying and selling that, building up money on that. So they got a racket going.
Well, see, and this is the one thing that they started freaking out on me here recently. Because now, the state is heavily going after me and all this stuff again, really. Because I sat there and I spilled the beans one afternoon. I got really pissed off at this one caseworker. And I said, I'm just done with this bullshit. And I said, I just want to make sure you do know that I did file identity theft for you guys, for you using my identity and stealing it for your personal gain through your budget that I could prove. Remember, I'm disabled, but also, too, I'm on a couple of different things that I'm still involved that I do get the information on. And they freaked out. Like I said, I do talk to people. I do email. I email senators and House of Representatives and all the time and do this stuff. It's not like I just don't do what I say I do. And it's like, it is true. I do live on a damn computer. I don't have what some, I guess, would call a life. I wouldn't know what that is anymore. But I know that I've got all this stuff going on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll put up a case, and sue them, take them to court. And if you're really good on your feet, you make sure you get a trial by jury. And they can't intimidate jury tampering. And you're really good on your feet. You can get in. It's like that's how Ryan Bundy. When he got up and started talking, all the jurors just got it. It 180 degrees from
You're missing one point here. If people have been paying attention to what's going on, they're going to have to start arresting some of these people. Okay? They're going to have to start charging some of these people because if they don't, they're going to go to jail themselves. Have you heard Donald Trump's speech dealing with this just last week? That's why the Democrats came out attacking him so heavy, and they use this immigration crap because they don't want people to hear that Donald Trump sat there and told them it's time to investigate their corporations. Did anybody hear that?
No, but I was sure looked at it. I didn't know he said something like that.
Well, this is one thing that, What does Donald Trump have to lose? And nobody gets it. Donald Trump lives in New York City. Where's New York City? Isn't New York City owned by the Vatican? It's not part of the United States.
You got it.
And do you think Donald Trump knows it? Hell yeah. He's the president of our corporation. He gets it.
Can I throw a quick conspiracy theory on you real fast? It's when the Pentagon got a hit, that they hit naval intelligence because they were working up stuff. That was the British side house to run everything, but they were going after this cabal that was taking us down because the British and the Jews are in a power struggle right now, and right now there's equivalent to a military coup being taken over right now. We got the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They're with us. The Navy, which is naval intelligence, which is the British basically, and what did they just opened up a space fleet that's under the control of the Navy. So
Oh yeah, they want to open up, so we got a space planet now. It's like, come on, people. How can we let the guy who owns Virgin Airplanes do it then? Why are we paying for it when he was going to do it for nothing? You know what I'm talking about? The guy who owns Virgin Airports and Planes and Virgin Corporation.
Yeah, some of it I do.
I can't remember his name, Burke something or something. Yeah, I can't think of his name, but it's like, and now all of a sudden they want the corporation individuals to pay for this multi-trillion zillion new products, so that way we can be out there floating in space like Star Trek. Come on, people. Can't you enjoy the grass, the plants around you, and the food that comes here? Next thing you know, you're going to be drinking Vita juice and chemicals you don't even know what it's really doing to your body. Oh, that's right. They're already doing that today.
What was that? Building 7? That was stocked up with the FBI. They had all kinds of evidence mounting to investigate, this banking cabal. And, that was a target.
Well, come on. Building 7 falls, nothing hit it. They say then the official report is that the vibration shut the building down. How come the other buildings didn't fall? These things are crazy when you step back and look at these things. And we're all dealing with this stuff, and this is the beauty about this, because we all see what's going on, and all of us have a piece of the puzzle to solve the solution. And we're all working and putting it together. Oh, by the way, bring up Tuesday night. What do you guys got going Tuesday night? Hello? Did I lose everybody?
No, I'm with you. I'm waiting for somebody to answer.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought, wasn't that you the one that sent me the email on Tuesday night with the other group?
No clue.
Okay, it wasn't you. Then he's already gone. Okay. Well, anyhow, I guess it's 8 o'clock. I wonder how many people we got left. So I guess we could call it an evening. It's been a heck of a good conversation. It was nice to have 90 join us. I'm glad to see that this is starting to come together, and I will be getting a copy of that case. We'll get that pumped out. I do want to send that to a couple people around and get it posted. I do plan on having a powwow with a few people on that this week, because if that one is the way he's claiming it, and 90 has never so far steered me wrong on anything that he said and done, and I know the living hell he went through with Kansas. I know the living hell. So he got it too, And like I said, I do apologize on some of the hell that kid went through, but I know what he was going through, but, he held it right. He did what he did. So, but, he went through a hell in Kansas. And I do know that. I went through that. And so, anyhow, We appreciate everybody. Go ahead.
Call me after you get off this call, please.
Okay. So,
it's important. Bye.
Okay. Anyhow, I'm going to get a hold of, I got one other thing to do before I do that one. But anyhow, I'm going to say good night to everybody. We appreciate it. May the Great Spirit and Mother Earth look over you, protect you. May the Creator really protect us all. You know, because without the Creator, we have no Mother Earth, we have no food, we have no water, we have no life. And, you know, and the one thing is we live in the most beautiful place on Earth, technically. And then we got all these chemicals with the corporations and doing all this stuff. And all we have to do is start saying no to these people. And the other point that I'm trying to get to the natives to comprehend, and if we could tie this up here, looks like it possibly could be plausible, is to get these natives doing the other filing to go after these men and women, to go after their heirs for their corporation damage to our food and water. So we let them pay or they leave. You know, if they don't pay for the damages, they get in their little jet plane and they leave our country, don't come back. I mean, we have a solution to protect our water, food, and resources. We can stand up and do this, but it's going to take all of us to put it together. So if this case is true, that's going to be an interesting deal. Anyhow, I got a couple other calls to make too myself. I would like to say thank you to everybody. We appreciate it. And most of all, thank you, Links.
Excellent. Hey, excellent show.
Have a good night.
Mm.
All participants are muted.
All right. You've been listening to the Education by Ed. Evidently they like... No, today is Sunday, woman. Damn it. It's Education by Ed. Sunday...
The other one was last night.
Yeah, last night was disclaimers. Sunday, June 24th, 2018. Evidently a long show, as long as it's got good information and not...
Jerry Springer?
No, not Jerry Springer or hearsay bullshit, which I will alter that I will make a new soundbite for that.
Yeah, we got to make sure so it comes off a little clearer instead of like a broken down mic.
No, that's why I did it. It was my voice. I didn't want it to be known, damn it.
No, but that's what I know that, but you can come up with something. You can figure something out to bleed something over the voice.
Yes, I boss up. Yes, I boss up. Yeah, anyways, thank you for listening. And I guess next Saturday, 90 will be here?
Yes, he'll be here. I'm going to be calling him back. I got his number.
So next Saturday, instead of the Disclaimers by Ed, you'll have the 90 No-No show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right.
You know, but that's the one thing. Now that he's got the stuff, and like I said, I've got to get his court case tomorrow stuff. Once I get that, I'll get that passed out to everybody. Because if his court case is what it is, because I've been dealing with him for the last 2 years myself, and we've gone through some ups and downs and rough roads. And I mean, I know the rough road he's lived. I mean, he spent, at Kansas, he spent 9 months in jail, and they tried to beat him to death 3 times. He spent 90 something days in solitary confinement.
Okay, we can get all that on Saturday, but I'm trying to close the show out.
I know.
Yeah, huh? Am I going to have to mute you? Didn't think so. All right. Anyways, we'll catch you next Saturday and Sunday. This show is going to be irregular until somehow they figure out a way to shut us completely off. And when that happens, look at the old shows, because we've been saying stuff that they're afraid of.
No, they ain't going to shut us off. Things are changing because they realize if they don't change, their bloodline ain't going to have no future. They're getting it.
Yeah, but as you said, they don't even care about their own bloodline.
Some don't. Some are. We'll see what happens here. It's going to be interesting.
I was hoping this was going to be a short exit out, but I guess not. So, good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.